Naruto, starting with the reward of the Seventh Hokage. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26 Sarutobi Hiruzen. Not only did he guide them on their shortcomings, he also treated them both to ramen. Kakashi Hatake wanted to refuse at first, but Yuchi agreed immediately. Are you kidding? If he had something to eat and knew where to go, he wouldn't come here to train with Kakashi. Now Namake's Minato took the initiative to invite the two of them to eat ramen. If this was rejected by the young and foolish Kakashi Hatake, he would be so angry that he would not be able to eat for 2 days. Looking at the two of them, Minato Namake's did not say anything, but looked at them with a smile. Appearing at the door of Ichiriko Ramen again, Yuki Yuichi couldn't help but sigh. It seems that I will be a frequent visitor here in the future. Yesterday, Uzumaki Kushina brought me here for a meal, and today, Namake's Minato brought me here. When I walked into the store, I saw the workers were busy typing. There was only one person in the store at this time, but this was normal. No matter how delicious Ichiriko Ramen is, it's not meal time and there can't be too many people, just as Yuki Yuichi was thinking. Namake's Minato shouted in surprise, "Hokage-sama, why are you here?" It seemed that Minato Namake's words had worked. Sarutobi Hiruzen turned his head to look at him, and then looked at Yuchi and Kakashi Hatake beside him. "It's Minato." Sarutobi Hiruzen smiled warmly, like an old man next door, and he didn't look majestic or pressured. "Are you here for ramen too?" Sarutobi Hiruzen said, and laughed. "The craftsmanship of this shop is quite good." Hearing this, Namake's Minato nodded and smiled. The handmade boss's craftsmanship has received constant praise. At this time, Sarutobi Hiruzen's eyes fell on Yuki Yuichi. "Who are these two guys?" he was asking. Knowingly he came here because he saw through Konoha's sealed crystal ball that Minato Namake's was going to take people to eat ramen. The crystal ball is something that relies on Konoha's barrier to exist. Through the crystal ball, one can use the telescope technique to connect to Konoha's barrier and see everything about Konoha in the crystal ball. However, this ninjutsu can only see places without obstructions, and there was no sound, but the absence of sound was nothing to ninja. After all, they were all ninjas, so it was not excessive to know lip reading. Hearing Sarutobi Hiruzen's question, Namake's Minato finally reacted, scratched his head apologetically, then pointed at Hatake Kakashi and introduced him. "This is Hatake Kakashi, the child of Tsukumo-senpai." Following the introduction by Minato Namake's, Hatake Kakashi bowed to Sarutobi Hiruzen, and then called out in a serious tone, "Hokage-sama." Seeing this, Sarutobi Hiruzen said with a smile, "Don't be so reserved." Namake's Minato pointed at Yuki Yuichi and introduced him again. "His name is Yuki Yuichi, and he is the child of Shinku-senpai. Hello, Uncle Hokage." Yuki smiled sweetly and called out in a sweet voice. His voice was always sweet, and he never hit anyone who smiled at him. He always kept this in mind. Ha. When Sarutobi Hiruzen saw Yuki Yuichi calling him Uncle Hokage, he couldn't help but burst out laughing. Then he looked at Minato Namake's and said with a puzzled look, "Yuki, this last name sounds familiar. Minato, do you have any impression?" Namake's Minato didn't doubt what he said, looked at Yuki Yuichi, and explained with a smile, "He is the child of King Shu Sr. and Queen Sr. and was adopted by Senhong Sr. Sarutobi Hiruzen then pretended to be enlightened, continued to look at Yuki Yuichi, and laughed again. "Since you call me uncle, then I will teach you a ninjutsu. Can you tell me what type of chakra you are?" Upon hearing this, Yuki scratched his head and said decisively, "I don't know." Yuhi Shinku did not test the properties of their chakra. After all, he was proficient in illusion, and at the beginning he only taught him and Yuhi Shinku the magical technique of this is not the right place, and there was no need to specifically test ninjutsu. Before hearing this, Sarutobi Hiruzen touched his chin and frowned. "Don't you know the properties of chakra?" At this moment, Namake's Minato handed over a chakra test paper from the side and said with a smile, "I have it here, use this to test it." Looking at the chakra test paper in Minato's hand, Yuki took it without hesitation. "Kakashi, have you ever measured the properties of chakra?" Minato Namake's saw Yuki take the chakra test paper, then looked at Kakashi Hatake, and spoke, "If not, I still have some here." Namake's Minato said as he took out 2 more chakra test papers from his pocket. Seeing this, Hatake Kakashi shook his head and refused. "I have tested it." Hearing this, Namake's Minato nodded, and Sarutobi Hiruzen also turned his head to look at him and gave him a gentle smile. At this time, Yuchi was controlling the chakra in his body and pouring it into the chakra test paper. Chakra paper, as the name suggests, can detect the properties of the chakra possessed by the ninja. Fire, paper can catch fire. Wind, the paper will split in the middle. Ray, the paper will wrinkle. Water, paper will get wet. Earth, paper will break. As Yuki Yuichi moved, sparks appeared on half of the chakra test paper, while the other half wrinkled. It seems that your chakra has lightning and fire attributes. Seeing this, Sarutobi Hiruzen touched his chin, thought for a moment, and said, "In this case, I will give you this ninjutsu." Under the envious gaze of Hokage Kakashi, Sarutobi Hiruzen took out a scroll from his arms. This is a scroll of the fire style, dragon fire technique. Although it's a C-rank ninjutsu, it's very powerful, Sarutobi Hiruzen said, winking at Yuki Yuichi. Once you learn it, you will be able to release a straight line of flame from your mouth. The speed and power are both first class, powerful enough to break large trees. Taking the scroll, Yuki looked at Sarutobi Hiruzen, then at Namake's Minato, and then nodded. "Thank you, uncle. Thank you, brother Minato." "Ha, you already call me uncle. How can I not give you something? How can I not be embarrassed?" Sarutobi Hiruzen laughed and waved his hands, then said, "In this case, I will leave first. As the Hokage, there are many things to deal with." Under the gaze of the three people, Sarutobi Hiruzen left with his hands behind his back, opening the scroll in his hand. Yuki looked at the contents inside with just one glance. He closed the scroll. Namake's Minato smiled and said, "How about it? You don't understand?" "Yeah," Yuki nodded. He recognized all the words in the text, but he couldn't understand them when they were put together. This makes him look like an illiterate person. He had never hated his ignorance as much as he did now. Chapter 27. The long-lost throne of the sky will finally welcome its master. When Yuhi Shinku taught him illusion techniques, she simply crushed it and fed it to him. This scroll directly records how to operate chakra, how to condense chakra into flames, and how to spray it out. They were all C-rank ninjutsu, but he couldn't understand this. As for the great fireball technique that comes with Uchiha Sasuke, Sharingan, he can use it with just a thought. This is the so-called unmatched ninjutsu. This is a hidden benefit of the character template. As long as you acquire ninjutsu, your proficiency will be directly achieved. Hokage Kakashi looked at the two of them curiously. He was also curious about what was written on the scroll, but he knew that it was a secret and he couldn't ask. "These are all taught in ninja schools," Namake's Minato explained, looking at the two of them and admonishing them. "You should stop skipping classes in the future, brother Minato. Did you know we were skipping classes?" Kakashi Hokage followed Yuki and called out to brother Minato. Namake's hearing Kakashi Hokage's question, Minato Namake's was speechless. "Ninja school just started yesterday, and I just met you two yesterday." Kakashi Hokage suddenly realized that he had indeed asked a stupid question. The hand-made ramen was served at the right time, seeing that there was obviously more in his bowl than in Minato Namake's and Kakashi Hokage. Yuki looked at his hands. "Thank you, uncle." Ha. "This is the first time you say this to me. I have to take good care of you." Hokage Kakashi glanced at the ramen and Yuki Yuichi's bowl and said, "You're so welcome." Ha. "This is how a future legend in the ninja world is treated. 50-50, my generosity is beyond your reach." Hokage Kakashi, he just sighed. How did it become like I'm not as good as him? Thinking in his heart, Hokage Kakashi snorted coldly and retorted, "Your capacity is not higher than mine. Then let's wait and see. This long-lost throne of the sky will finally welcome its master." Hokage's office. As soon as Sarutobi Hiruzen sat down, he heard a bang, and then the door was kicked open heavily. He didn't look up. There was no doubt that the person who made such a noise must be that guy Danzo. Sure enough, as the footsteps got closer, Danzo's voice appeared in his ears. "Hiruzen." Danzo slammed a document on the desk. "Hiruzen, what do you mean?" Sarutobi Hiruzen glanced at the document that said funding cuts, then raised his eyelids and looked at Danzo. "What are you talking about?" "How come I don't know?" "HMPH, Danzo snorted. "You know exactly what I'm talking about. Why are you cutting funding for the roots?" "I'm not targeting you, but the entire Embu." "I don't care," Danzo complained. "You can't deduct my funds, Danzo." "This is not up to you." Danzo was making a fuss, so Sarutobi Hiruzen slammed the table and spoke harshly. Seeing his appearance, Danzo looked at him quietly for a long time. He seemed to have given up and sat down opposite Sarutobi Hiruzen. "If I have to cut it down, I want two people." "Who?" Sarutobi Hiruzen frowned. "Uzumaki Kushina and Yuki Yuichi." "Impossible." Sarutobi Hiruzen slammed the table again, his tone firm. Hearing that he was not allowed to do this, Danzo stood up. "Hiruzen, I've told you many times, leave the nine tails to me, I will train a real weapon for Konoha, Denzo. I've said this many times. Seeing Denzo stand up, Sarutobi Hiruzen also stood up. I can't possibly give the nine tail to you. I can't possibly hand Kushina over to you. Give up on that idea. Sarutobi Hiruzen had no intention of taking a single step back. The nine-tailed fox is his bottom line. Seeing his appearance, Denzo did not have much disappointment on his face. His purpose of coming here this time was not the nine tails and Uzumaki Kushina. He asked for this woman many times, but his best friend Sarutobi Hiruzen never gave her to him and wanted to monopolize her. So when he mentioned it again today, he still didn't get the woman's opinion. Then leave Yuki Yuichi to me. Denzo revealed his true purpose. Yuki Yuichi, the previous root funds and Uzumaki Kushina were all his cover. His real target is Yuki Yuichi. Hearing what he said, Sarutobi Hiruzen sat down and took a puff of his pipe. This is your real purpose. He and Denzo have known each other for such a long time, and have spent more time together than with his wife. He knows Denzo better than anyone else in the world. At the beginning, Denzo brought up Kushina and Yuki Yuichi together, and his eyes were all on Kushina, and after hearing these words now, he realized what Denzo's ultimate goal was. Denzo, Yuki Yuichi can't give it to you, Hiruzen. Sarutobi Hiruzen's words made Denzo angry. He was not given funds, nor was he given the nine tails and the Jinchuriki. Now I want another person, but he won't give it to me. What a bully. Seeing Denzo standing up and looking angry, Sarutobi Hiruzen tapped the table lightly. It's no use for you to be angry. He should be in the sun. He is an Uchiha who is born evil. Denzo's voice sounded particularly cold. The evil Uchiha should stay with me in the dark underground and become the roots of this big tree. He is not Uchiha? Sarutobi Hiruzen also snorted coldly. His last name is Yuki. He's one of Kushina's clan. Sarutobi Hiruzen's words were firm and decisive, but Denzo didn't hear a word of it. Even if he has Uzumaki's blood, he's still an evil Uchiha. You should know that he awakened the Sharingan yesterday. Look at him, what an evil fellow he is. He awakened the Sharingan at the age of 6. Earlier than any other Uchiha. You're saying he's not an evil Uchiha? Give up, Denzo. I can't give him to you. Sarutobi Hiruzen listened to him and smoked his pipe. He is different from you. He can only bathe in the sun and become a leaf. As if knowing that Sarutobi Hiruzen would never hand Yuki Yuichi over to him, Denzo snorted coldly and gritted his teeth. You'll regret it. Hiruzen, Denzo. I am the Hokage. Bump. As Denzo walked out, the door to the Hokage's office slammed against the door frame with a dull sound. Seeing Denzo leave, Sarutobi Hiruzen tapped the table lightly for a long time, then shouted, "Someone come." Sandaime-sama, the Anbu appeared in front of him in an instant. The cuts to the Anbu budget have been restored. Yes, the Anbu received the order and was about to leave when Sarutobi Hiruzen called out to him again, and many more. The funding for the root department is still being cut, so your funding will be adjusted back. After the Anbu left, Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at the door. Denzo, forgive me. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28, Craftsmanship, Being Cheated. Yuki Yuichi and Hatake Kakashi still came to the ninja school in the afternoon. As soon as he sat down, Kurenai poked him with her little hand. Yuichi, Mr. Ikoku seemed very angry when he saw that you were not in school this morning. Kurenai's voice was a little soft and a little nervous at the same time. She was nervous for Yuki Yuichi. Umino Ikoku looked scary when he was angry in the morning. Kakashi Hatake, who was sitting in front of them, pricked up his ears, ready to listen to how Yuki Yuichi planned to escape this disaster. He also learned it glancing at Hatake Kakashi, who was leaning on his desk with his head raised towards the back. Yuki Yuyu immediately understood what he was thinking and said, "It's okay. Hong, when Ikoku-sensei asks me, I will say that Hokage-sama took us away for something," Yuki Yuichi said, glancing at Hatake Kakashi from the corner of his eye. He had already retracted his head. Hearing Yuki Yuichi's words, Yuhi Kurenai opened her mouth in surprise. "Yuichi, did the Hokage really look for you?" Seeing her appearance, Yuki Yuichi smiled. Of course. As he spoke, he pulled out a scroll from his bosom. "This is the jutsu that Hokage Sama rewarded me with. Yuki Yuichi handed the ninjutsu scroll to Yuhi Kurenai. The scroll that Sarutobi Hirozen gave him had a symbol on it. There is a word fire on it. This means that this ninjutsu scroll came from the Hokage building or was a ninjutsu that ninjas exchanged for merits accumulated through missions. Ordinary people won't get it. Yuhi Kurenai naturally knew this, and she held the scroll but did not open it, but instead showed a sweet smile. Yoichi-kun, you are so amazing. As she said that, she handed the ninjutsu scroll over again. But Yuki Yuichi did not take it. Instead, he used his hands to mess up Yuhi Kurenai's hair. Please keep the scroll for me, Hong. When we get back, let's make Uncle Zhenhong happy. Looking at the scroll in her hand, then at Yuki Yuichi, Kurenai nodded her head seriously. I will definitely keep it safe. Yes. I believe you. The two of them were talking as if no one was around, while Kakashi in front and the others sitting there had bitter faces. 6 years old. He's only 6 years old. Is it really appropriate for the two of you to put on a show like this without paying any attention to others? Just then, Umino Ikoku walked in. He didn't say anything when he walked in. Instead, he stood on the podium, looked around, put down the book, and coughed lightly. Hatake Kakashi. Yuki Yuichi, you two, come with me to my office. Kano Ikoku didn't say anything else and walked outside. First Kakashi Hatake and Yuki stood up, looked at each other, and then followed him out. You two be careful. Uchiha Obito looked outside the door cautiously and said to the two of them, the teacher got angry this morning. Uchiha Obito was sitting not far from them. Although he was beaten by Yuki Yuichi, he did not bear a grudge. Hearing his words, Hatake Kakashi glanced at him, then turned his head away proudly. Don't panic at all, okay? He was called over by the Hokage. Not panicking at all. Yuki Yuichi gave Uchiha Obito a bright smile. Seeing his smile, Uchiha Obito shuddered and recalled the explosive scene of awakening the Sharingan with eye drops yesterday as Yuki Yuichi and Hatake Kakashi walked to the office door. Ikoku Umino was already waiting there. There's no one in the office now. The school has just started and the teachers are very busy. Shouldn't you two give the teacher an explanation? Kano Ikoku suppressed the urge to teach the two a lesson and spoke with a gentle smile, but this smile was a bit forced. Yuki took a half step back and protected Kakashi Hatake in front. Noticing his movements, Hatake Kakashi curled his lips. Teacher, we have been called over by the Hokage to help. Umino Ikoku's fist hardened but he didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at Yuki Yuichi, waiting for his excuse and wanting to see if he had any new words to say. Seeing him looking at him, Yuki Yuichi coughed lightly, bowed 90 degrees, and apologized in a very respectful manner. I'm so sorry. I thought the teacher was letting me move freely and making an excuse, but I didn't expect that. I misunderstood the teacher's idea. Yuki Yuichi apologized again. I'm so sorry. There won't be a next time, Ikoku-sensei. His actions left Hatake Kakashi confused. That's not what you said just now. Ikoku Umino looked at Yuki, then at Kakashi Hatake, and took a deep breath. Yuki Yuichi admitted his mistake in a good manner, and he was not as angry as before. He likes children who correct their mistakes as soon as they realize them. Since you realize your mistake, go back first. Please tell my classmates to study the Will of Fire on their own first. I will check it later. Seeing that Umino Ikoku let him go, Yuki Yuichi felt happy. Then he smiled and looked at the still confused Hatake Kakashi, and sighed and shook his head in disappointment. Seeing Yuki leaving, Kakashi Hatake instinctively wanted to follow him. He thought that Umino Ikoku wanted the two of them to go back together, but when he had just taken 2 steps, Umino Ikoku came up with a gloomy face and then closed the office door. He had thought that even though both of them had skipped classes, but they all know how to read and refine chakra, so a few simple lectures will be enough. He also expected that the two would make excuses. But he didn't expect Yuki Yuichi to admit his mistake with a good attitude. He could have accepted the quibbling, but if he had never seen the light now, Yuki Yuichi's attitude is in sharp contrast to Hatake Kakashi's attitude. He must teach Kakashi Hatake, this lying kid, a lesson. Coming out of the office, Yuki Yuichi walked in the corridor, and their class was a bit noisy. When we walked into the classroom, everyone stopped talking under everyone's gaze. Yuki slowly walked up to the podium, coughed twice, and then slammed his hand heavily on the podium. I don't understand anything. I don't learn anything. The teacher has been away for a while, so you guys started playing. Your class is the worst I've ever taught. After Yuki Yuichi finished speaking, he coughed again and said, the above words are what I brought to you by Teacher Ikoku. He also asked us to study the Will of Fire on our own. He will come to check it out later. Yuki's voice was very loud at the beginning, and it could be heard through the classroom and even by the young teacher next door. He even paused in his lecture and sighed silently in his heart. Mr. Yumino students are really considerate. They know that the teacher is not there, but they are still willing to maintain order in the class. Chapter 29 Random Check of Yumino Ikoku. Yuchi, are you okay? It's okay. Yuki Yuichi shook his head. Ikoku-sensei was very nice. He let me come back after I apologized. Oh, Kurenai nodded, then looked at the empty seat in front of her and asked curiously, is Kakashi not back yet? Thinking of Hokage Kakashi who was being scolded, Yuki Yuichi concealed his embarrassment, and then said nonchalantly, he didn't apologize, and made excuses for himself and was discovered by the teacher, so, the teacher is still teaching this bad boy lesson. Looking at Yuki Yuichi, although she didn't want to admit it, Kurenai Yuhi still felt that her own Yuchi was more like a delinquent than Hokage Kakashi. The two were talking in low voices in their seats, and Uchiha Madara looked at them both with envy. When would he be able to be like this with Lin? He also wanted to be with Lin like this. What a winner in life. He is already very strong, he awakened his Sharingan by applying eye drops, and he also has a girlfriend who he grew up with. He, Uchiha Madara, is truly envious. No one's joys and sorrows are shared. While Yuki Yuichi and Yuhi Kurenai were being affectionate, Hokage Kakashi just hung his head with a look of despair when Yumino Ikoku lectured him. He retorted, but he was speechless when someone said something to him. Hokage-sama wants to see you about something, so do you have any evidence? With just these words, Hokage Kakashi was completely speechless. He has no fucking evidence. The Hokage gave the scroll to Yuki. Damn bastard. One day, I will take back what I lost today. Hokage Kakashi thought to himself. Ikoku Yumino talked with Kakashi Hokage for a long time, and when they returned to the classroom, half of the afternoon class had passed. Looking at the people in the front row who are studying and the people in the back row who are slacking off, Yumino Ikoku coughed lightly and began to check his understanding of the will of fire. Classmates, what did you see from the self-study of the will of fire? His smile was warm, and there was no trace of the way he had just taught Hokage Kakashi a lesson. Seeing that no one raised their hand, Yumino Ikoku frowned and then prepared to conduct a random check, but at this moment, Yuki Yuichi raised his hand. Me. Kano Ikoku was stunned for a moment, then smiled with relief. At first I thought this guy was a troublemaker, but now I find that Yuki Yuichi is a pretty good guy. Okay. Then let Yuichi tell us what he saw in the will of fire. Hearing this, Yuki Yuichi stood up. Zihong was blinking her big eyes and looking at him with admiration on her face. She didn't see anything in the book Will of Fire just now. Where the leaves dance, the fire lives. The first Hokage passed down the will of fire, and the second and third Hokage will carry it forward. Before Yuki Yuichi could say anything else, he spoke three big flatterers, then paused and continued. I read a lot of heroic deeds in this book. A ninja who is willing to sacrifice himself for the village and the villagers. They are all ninjas of the will of fire. Yeah. Ikoku Yumino looked at Yuki with a smile. These are very simple and are all recorded in the book Will of Fire, but they are scattered, and now that Yuki can say it, it proves that he truly understands the will of fire. Anything else? Yuki Yuichi nodded when he heard this. Yes, there is. I met up with Minato-sama and the Hokage-sama this morning. As soon as he said this, there was an immediate commotion in the classroom. Even Yumino Ikoku looked at him in surprise, and then he seemed to have thought of something and glanced at Hokage Kakashi. Yuki Yuichi continued talking. I went to the top of the Hokage Rock with Gogo Kai to practice this morning and ran into Brother Minato. We asked him to give us some advice, and he agreed straight away. After giving us the advice, he even paid for us to eat ramen. Perhaps this is the manifestation of the will of fire in the book, Yuki Yuichi said, looking at Yumino Ikoku. Yumino Ikoku nodded at him to continue, but the smile in his eyes became gentler. Yuki Yuichi did not hesitate, but continued, while eating ramen, we met Uncle Hokage. Uncle Hokage is really kind and gave me an ninjutsu. When he knew that I didn't have the chakra attribute checked, Brother Minato gave me a chakra test paper. Although it's not an earth-shattering event, I saw the will of fire mentioned in the book. In it, selfless help, gentle elder and big brother. Yuki Yuichi said this with little stars twinkling in his eyes. I want to be a ninja like this in the future. Upon hearing this, Yumino Ikoku was the first to cheer and applaud, clapping his hands. Yuichi-san's understanding is very profound. Although it's a small matter, you can see the manifestation of the will of fire from it. You have already understood the true meaning of the will of fire. As Yumino Ikoku finished his words, applause broke out in the classroom. Yuki Yuichi sat down. At this time, does he really have the will of fire? Family members know their own business. He has no will of fire if possible. He didn't even want to watch such brainwashing stuff, but he had to watch it. To survive in Konoha, and having awakened the Sharingan, he had to demonstrate a strong will of fire. He may be disdainful and look down on the will of fire in his heart, but he must shout out the will of fire. The best dream is to become a Hokage. This is the political correctness of Konoha Ikoku. Yumino randomly checked several more students, and the afternoon class was over. Yuuki Yuichi and Yuhi Kurenai were walking on the street, drooping their bodies as if they had lost all hope in life, and Yuhi Kurenai was a little excited beside him. Yuchi, Ikoku-sensei praised you. Dad would be so happy if he knew. Zirihong was skipping and jumping, looking happy and excited. Yuuki Yuichi walked beside her. With a twitch of his lips, Yuhi Shinku won't be happy. He didn't think that Yuhi Shinku had any will of fire, as she could say something like using illusion to save her life. In other words, anyone who knows a little bit will not be superstitious about the will of fire. Of course, there are exceptions. For example, a certain Hatake Tsukumo and a certain Namikaze Minato, both of them represent the will of fire. We're back. Yuuki Yuichi pushed open the door and said weakly. Zirihong rushed into the house first, shouting with joy, Dad, Dad, we are back. You're back. Yuhi Shinku came out of the kitchen wearing an apron. Seeing the two of them, she smiled and said, the meal will be ready soon. You two can take a rest first. Chapter 30, The Teachings of Yuhi Shinku. Sitting at the table, Yuuki Yuichi took a deep breath of the aroma of the food and couldn't help but praise, Uncle Shiku's cooking skills are getting better and better. Yuhi Kurenai's mother passed away, and Yuhi Shinku has been both a father and a mother all along, and has developed excellent cooking skills. Hearing his praise, Yuhi Shiku's lips curled up into a barely noticeable smile, and then waved her hand. Let's eat. I'm going to start giving you special training soon. Yes, Yuhi Kurenai nodded seriously. I will definitely become stronger. I want to protect Yuchi too. Zirihong said this, looked at her old father again, and added, and Dad, sunset is really red, the little cotton padded jacket is leaking. The meal was spent with Yuhi Shiku's heart attack. The happy laughter of Yuhi Kurenai and Yuuki Yuichi made him feel a little heartbroken but also warm family. That's how it should be. Looking at the appearances of Yuuki Yuichi and Yuhi Kurenai, Yuhi Makoto thought silently that it would be great if she could grow up quickly so that she could retire and take care of her grandchildren. Ninjas can also retire. If you don't want to be a ninja anymore, just apply for retirement, but whether you agree or not is another matter. A ninja like Yuhi Shinku would only hold a sinecure even if he could retire after dinner. Yuhi Shinku looked at the two of them seriously. When he was about to speak, Yuhi Shinku took out a scroll engraved with the word fire and handed it to him, and interrupted him. Dad, this is what the Hokage-sama gave to Yuchi. Yuuki Yuichi nodded and recounted what happened in the morning. Holding the scroll, Yuhi Shinku looked at Yuuki Yuichi in silence. He was not a fool, so he naturally knew how small the probability of meeting Sarutobi Hiruzen in a ramen restaurant was, especially when I met him. He gave me a ninjutsu scroll. This is to gain favor. On the contrary, he didn't take Minato Namikaze seriously at the beginning. He knew about the relationship between Uzumaki Kushina and Yuuki Yuichi, and Namikaze Minato naturally knew it too. He and Hatake Kakashi went to the training ground previously opened by Minato Namikaze to practice, so it was normal for them to meet. Many people in Konoha know about the training ground above Hokage Rock. Looking at the scroll in her hand, Yuhi Shinku sighed. When Uchiha Yuki showed him his Sharingan yesterday, he knew that it would be a matter of time before he would be noticed, but he didn't expect it to come so soon. This should be considered a good thing, Yuhi Shinku thought to himself. He was still racking his brains over how to talk to the Uchiha clan about the Sharingan. Now I don't have to worry about it anymore. The Hokage has noticed this kid Uchiha Yuki, so he should already know about the Sharingan. As for the Uchiha matter, just let the Hokage handle it. He just needs to pretend he doesn't know. Thinking of this, Yuhi Shinku opened the scroll in her hand. The first thing that caught my eye was the name of the ninjutsu. Fire style, Dragon Fire Technique. He knew this ninjutsu, an ordinary C-rank fire ninjutsu, apart from the 3 body techniques and flickering body technique, which have extremely low lower limits and extremely high upper limits. C-level ninjutsu is the easiest to learn. The level of a ninjutsu is determined by how difficult it is to learn. C-level ninjutsu does not mean that his power belongs to the C-level category. However, the greater the initial power of a ninjutsu, the more difficult it is to learn and the higher the level. So it is not wrong to classify the power of ninjutsu by level. Since Hokage-sama has given you the jutsu, I will teach you to this jutsu first. As Yuhi Shinku said this, she took out 2 chakra test papers from her pocket, looked at Yuuki Yuichi and said, although you have tested it in front of the Hokage, I have already bought 2 chakra test papers. It's a waste to leave it alone. Try testing it again. Upon hearing this, Uchiha Yuki did not object. He took a chakra test paper and infused chakra into it just like before. Half of the chakra test paper was sparking and the other half was wrinkled. Seeing this, Yuhi Shinku nodded. In fact, he still didn't quite believe what Yuki Yuichi said. After all, the impression this kid had given him in recent years was not very reliable. Yuhi Kurenai also followed suit and picked up another chakra test paper and injected chakra into it, then watched with some anticipation while blinking her big eyes under the gaze of the three people. Sparks slowly ignited around the chakra test paper, and then there was no change. When Zihi's Henhong saw this, she was not disappointed. Chakra properties are just the beginning. This thing can be cultivated. Just because he only has fire attribute chakra now doesn't mean it will be the same in the future. And his idea is to train Kurenai Yuhi to be an illusion ninja. This way the danger level won't be too high. That's just right. After the two of them finished measuring the chakra attributes, Yuhi Shinku continued, "Okay, the preparations are done. I will teach you two ninjutsu from now on," Zihi Shinku said, completely opening the scroll in her hand, and said at the same time, "I originally wanted to teach you a Jinjutsu, but since Hokage-sama gave you the scroll, and you both have fire attribute chakra, I will teach you two fire jutsu first." Yuki Yuichi and Yuhi Kurenai sat quietly in their seats. Looking at Yuhi Makoto, "I think you two can't understand this scroll." Zihi Shinku pointed at the scroll and said with a smile, "Yeah." Zihi Kurenai nodded her head. "When Yuichi gave me this scroll, I couldn't understand it." Yuki Yuichi also said, "I know all the words in it, but I don't know them when they are put together." Hearing what the two said, Yuhi Shinku nodded, "Is normal. Do you know the essence of ninjutsu?" Essence. Hearing this, Yuki Yuichi was stunned for a moment, then tentatively asked, "Use chakra to release ninjutsu?" "Yes, and also wrong." Zihi Shinku shook her head. Seeing the two people looking at her in confusion, she did not keep them in suspense but said directly, "The essence of ninjutsu is to release it with chakra, but how to release it is the essence. Normally, chakra flows throughout the body, but they are flowing in the meridians. The essence of ninjutsu is actually to let chakra flow along specific routes, thereby forming various attribute ninjutsu. So, the essence of ninjutsu is actually the flow of chakra. If you are very familiar with the flow path of a certain ninjutsu and have a high level of chakra control, then you can simplify the ninjutsu from 10 seals to 4 or 5 seals." What Yuhi Shinku said was very simple and easy to understand. Yuki Yuichi looked at him thoughtfully and asked, "So, all ninjutsu can be done without hand seals, correct?" Chapter 31. Yan was stunned. Yuhi Shinku explained the theory for a long time. Yuki Yuichi did not feel annoyed. Instead, he absorbed this knowledge with shining eyes. These are the understanding and knowledge of a Jonin, things that are not shown in the original work for a ninja student who has never learned ninjutsu. Ninjutsu is not something that can be learned by just holding a scroll and memorizing the chakra flow route and the order of seals. This highly difficult operation is difficult to achieve. Although future Hokage Kakashi can copy ninjutsu during combat, that doesn't mean it's easy. Who is Hokage Kakashi? This is a rare genius. He entered school at the age of 5, graduated in the same year, became a Chunin at the age of 6, a Jonin at the age of 12, and a captain of the Anbu at the age of 15. This resume sounds like something out of a vernacular novel. By the time Yuhi Shinku taught the two the tricks and methods of performing fire style, dragon fire technique, it was already completely dark. Yuki was eager to try, but looking at the dark sky outside, he couldn't help but frown. Although he behaved like a naughty kid, he was not really a naughty kid. Where was he going to experiment with ninjutsu so late at night? As if seeing through his thoughts, Zihi's Henhong chuckled and said, "If you want to try it, then go to the yard and try it." The Yuhi family is not in the center of Konoha, but with Yuhi Shiku's status as a senior ninja and her accumulated savings, and the fact that this place is not a particularly prosperous area, the house she bought is quite large. The yard is naturally large. Hearing his words, Yuki jumped up from his seat and ran outside. At the same time, he silently recited the order of hand seals of this ninjutsu that Yuhi Shinku had just taught him. Si, Chen, Mo, Yin. Yuki Yuichi stood at one side of the yard, with Yuhi Kurenai beside him, and Zihi's Henhong seemed to have made up her mind that he couldn't perform it, and leaned lazily against the door. Yuki Yuichi's hand seal making speed is not slow. Although he had cheats, he never gave up his ninja craft. Consciously exercised the flexibility of your fingers from an early age as he formed seals one by one. The flow of chakra was also controlled within his body. The originally cool chakra now became manic and gathered towards his throat. As more and more chakra gathered in his throat, Yuki Yuichi only felt hot and burning. Si, Chen, Mo, Yin, fire release, dragon fire technique. When he could no longer bear the high temperature in his throat, Yuki became deflated. pouting his mouth and blowing air outside at the same time. A violent flash of fire suddenly appeared, but because Yuki Yuichi pouted his mouth, the flame that should have erupted was gathered into a thin pillar of fire. However, after the pillar of fire appeared, Yuki Yuichi only felt an inexplicable energy appearing, and then he saw the fire line expand by 3/10. Then, in his eyes, the pillar of fire was like a rushing river, sweeping towards the wall on the other side. Fire style. Dragon fire technique. The high temperature of the fire release made Kurenai take a few steps back. At the same time, her eyes narrowed into crescents, and she jumped for joy excitedly when Yuhi Shinku saw Yuki Yuichi successfully perform the fire release ninjutsu. She almost fell off the door she was leaning against. He really didn't expect that Yuki could actually learn this ninjutsu, you know. For ordinary Jinan, level ninjutsu is also very difficult. As a result, Yuki Yuichi learned it in just a few hours. Is this reasonable? This is unreasonable. Ignoring Yuhi Shiku's fucked up mood, Yuki Yuichi's ninjutsu continued. The pillar of fire hid another wall directly, the flames spread in all directions, and at the same time, a hole was punched in the wall by this ninjutsu. It was only at this time that Zihi's Henhong reacted. Her face changed drastically, and she quickly formed seals with her hands. Water release, Taketsubo Jutsu. As Yuhi Shiku finished speaking, a waterfall fell from the sky and directly extinguished Yuki Yuichi's fire escape. Yuhi Shiku then ran to another wall and was relieved to see that not much damage was caused. Yuki Yuichi and Yuhi Kurenai also ran over, looking at the damage he had caused. Yuki Yuichi was stunned. Like Yuhi Shinku, he never thought that he could perform ninjutsu. When I first learned illusion techniques, it took me a long time to master them. But I didn't expect that when I learned fire escape techniques today, I would suddenly get a surprise. Thinking of this, Yuki immediately became excited. Am I really a genius? Upon hearing this, Zihi Shinhong glanced at him and also thought to herself, is he really a genius? But at this moment, Yuki thought of the sudden change in the previous ninjutsu, as if he remembered something, and two achievements popped up in front of him. Ninja Student. Wearing this title will increase the effectiveness of ninjutsu by 10% and the effectiveness of training by 20%. Ninjutsu, Rage. Passively gain a 20% damage stacking effect. Your attacks and damage will cause an additional %. Maybe you can use a kunai to poke Susanoo, which should be able to break the defense. Right, the power of the dragon fire technique has inexplicably increased, seemingly matching these two achievements. Moreover, the title also increases the effect of cultivation. Thinking of this, Yuki shook his head. Impossible, absolutely impossible. He has achieved his current success through his own hard work. It has nothing to do with these two achievement rewards. After finishing the things, Zihi's Henhong took a deep breath, looked at Zihi Hong, and said, Hong, you try it too, eh? Ziri Hong blinked her big eyes and looked at her old father. Then he looked at the wall in front of him with a big hole in it and asked nervously, isn't this a bad idea? It's okay. Seeing that she was a little nervous, Zihi's Henhong comforted her, it's already like this anyway, it can't be any worse. If it doesn't work, Dad will use water escape to extinguish it. After hearing this, Ziri Hong nodded. Unlike Yuki Yuichi, she has not practiced her craft for a long time. She made the seals one after another, but fortunately her seals were very smooth and there were no stumbling blocks. After a moment, Yuhi Kurenai took a deep breath and then exhaled suddenly. At this time, Yuhi Shiku was also prepared. If a huge column of fire was ejected again, he would extinguish it in an instant, but he was destined to be disappointed. Although Yuhi Kurenai looked scary, when she exhaled, only some sparks were emitted at the same time. Yuhi Kurenai started coughing violently, and some black smoke came out of her mouth. Yuhi Shiku handed over the water that she had prepared long ago and then nodded. This is the situation of new scholars, but what's going on with this kid? Focusing her eyes on Yuki Yuichi, who was patting Yuhi Kurenai on the back and trying to calm her down, Yuhi Kurenai was puzzled. If I'm not mistaken, the column of fire that was spit out at the beginning wasn't that big, right? Chapter 32 Deception. Zihi Shiku didn't think much about it, but touched her daughter's little head. Yuhi Kurenai behaves like a beginner. Thinking of this, he turned his gaze to Yuki Yuichi. Then I saw this kid standing there in a daze, not knowing what he was thinking about. Not bad, but don't be proud, this is just normal. Zihi Shiku coughed lightly and said shamelessly, when I first learned ninjutsu, I learned it at the same time as you. Upon hearing this, Yuki Yuichi looked at him with disdain. Uncle Zhenhong, I'm not a 4 or 5-year-old kid anymore. You can't fool me. He's already 6 years old this year. Sunset is really red. I forgot that this kid knows a lot. The next day Yuyu was lying on the desk board. While Kurenai was reading a book on assassination techniques with great interest beside him. Hong, why are you looking at these? Yuki said lazily while lying on the table. Kurenai turned her head to look at him in confusion. Isn't this what ninjas are supposed to learn? As she spoke, she handed the book to Yuki Yuichi and pointed to a theory in the book and said, "Hey, take a look at this. A ninja's mission needs to be secretive and confidential, and it must be completed through lurking and various means, including but not limited to poisoning, sneak attacks, stealth, disguise, etc. You can learn a lot from this book." Upon hearing this, Yuki looked at the place where Yu Hong's finger was pointing. There was indeed such a sentence on it, but he shook his head. He has his own understanding. The strong ones in the ninja world are all incredible. One person can destroy an entire country, so do these beings need to be poisoned or attacked by surprise? Yuki never thought that he was worse than them because he had cheats. He immediately said confidently, "Why is it so troublesome? If no one sees you carrying out your mission, wouldn't that be perfect concealment?" Zairi Hong heard this, with confusion in her eyes, and asked curiously, "But how can I prevent people from seeing me carrying out a mission?" "It's very simple, just kill him. If you kill all the people who are protecting the person being assassinated, then no one will see you carrying out your mission, right?" Yuki Yuichi's words were full of murderous intent, but in this ninja world, people only think that there's a problem with the way he handled it. But they don't think there's anything wrong with him at this moment. Hatake Kakashi walked in front of him, heard what he said, and immediately sneered, "You are a reckless man, not a ninja. Wuwake, don't be so serious." Seeing Hatake Kakashi coming to the classroom, Yuki Yuichi climbed onto his shoulder with a smile, glancing at Yuki's hand that was clinging to his shoulder from the corner of his eye. Kakashi Hatake twisted his shoulder and shook his hand off. "I don't want to bother with you." Only he himself knew how badly he was taught a lesson by Umino Ikoku yesterday. He really didn't expect that Yuki Yuichi would set a trap for himself. "Didn't Lord Hokage come to find me as he promised?" Yuki Yuichi didn't take Kakashi Hatake's attitude seriously as a kid. It's normal for him to feel a little resentful after being tricked by himself. "Wuwake, I'm doing this for your own good." Yuki Yuichi looked distressed upon hearing this. Hatake Kakashi frowned. Wasn't he on high alert? "Are you kidding? The son of Konoha White Fang, Hatake Kakashi, is extremely vigilant." When Uchiha saw his expression, he was still heartbroken and said, "Your vigilance is too low. I can trick you into dying in front of the teacher. If you become a ninja in the future, you will definitely be sold out and count the money." As he spoke, Yuki Yuichi took the ninja assassination technique from the confused Kurenai beside him and pointed to the part that Kurenai had just shown him. 50-50, did you see that? Hatake Kakashi was a little confused by his series of words. He looked at the paragraph above, hesitated for a moment, and then nodded. Yuki felt relieved when he saw this, and continued without changing his expression, "Look, it's written above. The ninja's mission must be completed by all means. You never know if someone will take advantage of your idea and sell you out, and you'll have to thank them. If I dug a pit in normal times and you fell into it, I would just be scolded, but in the future, your life will be taken. Tell me, am I doing this for your own good?" Kakashi Hatake nodded subconsciously, but then he reacted and looked at Yuki with anger on his face. "So you're the one who set me up, and you want me to thank you?" He was a little confused for a moment after hearing what Yuki Yuichi said, but he was Kakashi after all, so he reacted quickly. Seeing that he had reacted, Yuki Yuichi coughed lightly. "This is a coincidence, but tell me if what I said makes sense." His words silenced Hatake Kakashi. "Although I don't want to admit it, what Yuki Yuichi said makes sense regardless of his arrogance." She still didn't allow him to bow his head, and immediately snorted, "Forget it this time. If there is a next time, I will definitely teach you a lesson." Hearing this, Yuki Yuichi looked strange and said, "You can't beat me, little brother." Seeing Hatake Kakashi sitting down, Uchiha made a gesture to Kurenai. Seeing this, Kurenai smiled sweetly. The two have been together for so long, and although her personality is still soft, she can guess Yuki Yuichi's thoughts and ideas very accurately. Class hasn't started yet, so Yuki Yuichi sat down again and poked Kakashi Hatake on the back at the same time. I could feel his spine, and thought to myself that this must be the backbone. "What?" Hatake Kakashi turned back impatiently. "Kyukyuksi. Can't you really show me your true face?" "Roll." Kakashi Hatake turned his head back and remained unmoved no matter how Yuki poked him in the back. "Kyukyuksi, if you don't turn back, I'm going to poke your spine," Yuki Yuichi said. poking him directly in the spine. Hokage Kakashi turned around immediately. "I won't show it to you, no." Yuki Yuichi shook his head this time. "I just want to ask if you want to go to the training ground to train again later." Upon hearing this, Hokage Kakashi looked a little hesitant. He also wanted to skip class, but he was lectured by his teacher yesterday. Seeing his intention, Yuki Yuichi once again slumped down on the desk. "We already know all these things. It's just a waste of time to take classes here. We might as well go to training." This time, Hokage Kakashi nodded in agreement. "But the teacher will be angry, right?" Zihong said weakly. "You two just skipped class yesterday. If you skip class again today." Chapter 33 Unintentional Skipping. Yuki Yuichi waved his hand nonchalantly. "It's okay, at most, you'll scold us again. If they can learn something new, they won't skip classes." Ikoku Umino should be mentally prepared for this. Yuki Yuichi thought about it and looked at the ninjas or descendants of ninjas who had arrived in the back row. He just didn't believe that the second generation ninjas in his previous class wouldn't skip classes. Training and practicing is very hard, but compared to the situation where he already knows how to do something but still has to stay here and attend classes, he would rather go for training and practicing that way. At least you can become stronger, although he has the system. He won't just wait foolishly for the system's rewards. Just as he was thinking over and over again and Hokage Kakashi was hesitating, Sarutobi Asuma came over and approached the two of them. "Are you guys skipping class again today, huh?" Yuki was stunned when he heard the voice, then turned his head to look at the second generation Kage who looked like a monkey. When Asuma Sarutobi saw Yuki looking at him, he did not hesitate at all. "If you guys are skipping class, I'll join you. Classes are so boring, even though they're things we already know." Sarutobi Asuma said this, clenching his hands and burning with fire in his eyes. "Instead of wasting this time, I might as well practice. I want to become even stronger." Hearing his words, Yuki Yuichi immediately agreed. "Okay, then let's leave now." Yuki Yuichi's words made Sarutobi Asuma stunned, and then he pointed out the window. "Now, of course, if the teacher comes, we will waste time again," Yuki Yuichi said, looking at Yuhi Kurenai, and said at the same time, "Kurenai will come too, eh?" Zihong pointed at herself cutely. "Me? Yeah." Yuki nodded. Yuhi Kurenai hesitated. "Isn't this a bad idea? Dad told us not to get into trouble at school. Uncle Shinku won't take it to heart," Yuki Yuichi said confidently. Seeing this, Yuhi Kurenai thought for a moment, then nodded and smiled brightly. "Okay then." Seeing that Yuhi Kurenai agreed, Yuki Yuichi took her little hand, opened the window directly, and they both jumped down at the same time. Seeing this, Asuma Sarutobi also chased after him. Kakashi Hokage, who was still hesitating, looked at the backs of the three of them leaving, gritted his teeth, and followed them. "If you get scolded, just get scolded like Yuki Yuichi." He would rather be scolded than listen to boring classes here. Shortly after they left, Umino Ikoku walked out of the office with a book in his arms and a smile on his face. "I believe that my teaching yesterday will definitely help Hokage Kakashi to win." He had to finish the literacy and chakra refining courses as soon as possible so that he could truly get on the right track. With this thought in mind, Umino Ikoku walked into the classroom. He put the textbook on the table with a smile, and then looked around. Habitually everybody is very well behaved, but he soon realized something was wrong. A few tables were empty. Umino Ikoku narrowed his eyes, realizing that something was wrong. After a long time, Umino Ikoku's roaring voice rang out in the classroom. "Yuki Yuichi, Hokage Kakashi, Uchiha Ibito, is that Uchiha Ibito?" Walking on the road, Asuma Sarutobi was a little surprised to see Uchiha Ibito running for his life in front of him. "Good morning, Ibito." Yuki Yuichi also saw Uchiha Ibito and greeted him with a smile. Kurenai Yuhi also greeted, "Good morning, Ibito." Hokage Kakashi didn't say anything, but looked at him with dead eyes. When Uchiha Ibito saw Yuki Yuichi and the other three, he was stunned, but when he heard them greeting him, he also smiled. "Good morning, all four of you." He said this, but he relaxed in his heart. He knew he was late, but seeing how Yuki Yuichi and the other three looked like they were late too, he suddenly felt less nervous. People tend to follow the crowd, and being late is no exception. If he was the only one who was late, Uchiha Ibito would be very panicked, but when there were more people, he was not so panicked. Asuma Sarutobi glanced at Uchiha Ibito, thinking that he was also skipping class, and invited him. Together. Uchiha Ibito thought that he was invited to go to school together, so he nodded and agreed immediately. Yuki Yuichi looked at the two of them strangely, then coughed lightly, but did not say anything else. Instead, he said, "Let's go." Then, seeing Yuki's strange look, and remembering what he had told her before that Uchiha Ibito would often be late, Kurenai Yuhi also had a strange expression on her face. Kakashi Hatake had no objection when he saw Uchiha Obito joining, and he has already accepted his fate. If he skipped classes, he would be scolded by the teacher anyway. So now that there is one more person, he will be scolded less on the way. Uchiha Obito relaxed his body, which was out of breath from running so fast. I told you guys that I saw a cat that could do a backflip on my way home yesterday. If you want to see it, you can come to my house. Glancing at the four people, Uchiha Obito was silent for a moment, then added, my house is quite big. No, I don't want to see it at all. Hatake Kakashi walked a little further away. Although Uchiha Obito was speaking to everyone just now, he kept looking at Hatake Kakashi, which made him feel a little uncomfortable seeing what Hatake Kakashi did. Uchiha Obito stomped his feet. Damn masked man, I will definitely teach you a lesson. I think you can call Wuwake the mysterious masked man. Yuki Yuichi came up to him and suggested, hey. Hatake Kakashi turned his head and looked at Yuki Yuichi. I told you not to give me weird nicknames. What about Dark Kakashi? PFFT. Asuma Sarutobi couldn't help laughing when he heard Dark Kakashi. Ha, Kakashi, you actually have such a Chunibyo nickname. You are Dark Kakashi. Then I will be Justice Asuma. Upon hearing this, Hatake Kakashi fell silent. Kurenai Yuhi looked at Yuchi sweetly from the side. That's great. Yuchi has made friends again. Yuchi had never had many friends before, although I don't know why Yuchi had been playing outside before. Might Guy is the only one who can be considered a friend. I met Hatake Kakashi a few days before entering school. However, looking at Asuma Sarutobi and Obito Uchiha who were chatting and laughing around her, she was genuinely happy. Yuchi-kun also smiles more often. Chapter 34 Pretending. They chatted and laughed all the way, and soon they reached the top of the Hokage rock. It was not until this moment that Uchiha Obito realized where he was being brought to. Uchiha Obito stopped in his tracks, feeling mixed emotions for a moment. Looking at the few people who were still talking and laughing, he suddenly didn't know what to say, as if sensing that he hadn't caught up. Sarutobi Asuma couldn't help but look back at him and asked in confusion, Obito, why aren't you leaving? Upon hearing this, Hatake Kakashi turned around and looked at him calmly with a pair of dead fish eyes. Uchiha Obito glanced at Yuki Yuichi, then hesitantly asked, where are we going? When Asuma Sarutobi heard this, he walked up with a smile and patted his shoulder heavily. Ha, we are going to practice. I forgot to tell you, there is a hidden training ground above the Hokage rock. We're planning on going here. As he said that, Sarutobi Asuma smiled and put his arm around Uchiha Obito's shoulders again. You should be skipping classes to go to training too. How clever, you're just not going to class. This way you don't have to think about leaving school. Uchiha Obito's mouth twitched when he heard this, and he forced out a smile with a guilty conscience. He was late, but that didn't mean he was skipping class. But Sarutobi Asuma praised him so much and said he was smart, he couldn't let go of his pride and could only force himself to say, that's right, school is so boring. I was just about to find a remote place to train and practice, Uchiha Obito said with a sad face. Kakashi Hatake looked at him suspiciously in front, and then remembered that this guy was late for class yesterday. His eyebrows suddenly jumped and a strange look appeared in his eyes at this time. Yuki Yuichi patted his shoulder and smiled seeing his appearance. Hatake Kakashi looked at Uchiha Obito again. You already knew it? Yes, Yuki said confidently, looking at the carefree and clueless Sarutobi Asuma. Yuki Yuichi continued, Obito must be late, and happened to run into us, and thought we were late too. You really have a bad taste. Hatake Kakashi couldn't help but complain. It's unfortunate that Uchiha Obito can know you. Don't worry, Yuki Yuichi said nonchalantly. Training together is a good thing. Looking at Hatake Kakashi, and then looking at Sarutobi Asuma who was happily chatting with Uchiha Obito, Yuki Yuichi thought silently, even if the future does not change and Uchiha Obito still becomes that prisoner, the friendship in youth is always beautiful. This was an insurance he made for himself. Although he didn't think that Uchiha Obito would become that prisoner because of his existence, it was always okay to make extra preparations. Even a cunning rabbit has 3 burrows. Just then, Asuma Sarutobi and Uchiha Obito seemed to have finished talking and walked towards them, looking at Yuki Yuichi and Hatake Kakashi. Uchiha Obito pretended to complain and said, you knew this place, but you didn't tell me. It's really too much. Asuma Sarutobi echoed from the side. That's right, if I hadn't asked you to, if you were still going to skip classes today, you would have kept it to yourself. It's really too much. As he said this, Sarutobi Asuma pretended to be angry. He didn't dislike the contact with Yuki and Kakashi Hatake. He could even say that he liked this feeling whether it was Yuki or Kakashi Hatake. or Obito Uchiha or Kurenai Yuhi. No one treated him differently just because his father was the Hokage. Others knew that his father was the Hokage, and they tried to curry favor with him. This also made him very disgusted, and at the same time he vowed to get rid of his father's influence and live his own life. Hearing what the two of them said, Yuki Yuichi shrugged. This place was discovered by Kakashi, and I just found out about it yesterday, so, you two should ask him, Yuki Yuichi said, pointing at Hatake Kakashi, indicating that the two should go and cause trouble for him. It's really the damned Kakashi. Uchiha Obito looked at Hatake Kakashi and said immediately, when we get there, I will challenge you. I want to show you the genius of the Uchiha. That's right, I want to challenge you too. Asuma Sarutobi nodded on the side. Kurenai Yuhi stood beside Yuki Yuichi, looking at them with a smile on her face, but she was still a little worried. Yuichi, is the teacher really okay? Hearing this, Yuki Yuichi turned his head to look at her, then ruffled her hair with his hands. Don't worry, it's okay. Zihong took his hand away with some resistance, complaining, don't touch my hair, next time you do this. Yuhi Kurenai was a little stuck when she spoke. Under Yuki Yuichi's gaze, she said with a red face, I will ignore you for a long time. Hearing what Yuhi Kurenai said, Yuki Yuichi smiled, stretched out his right hand, and lightly touched her forehead with his index finger. Red, so cute. As Yuki Yuichi was speaking, he noticed the gazes from the side. He turned his head and saw Uchiha Obito and the other two looking at him with resentment. Zihong also noticed their gazes, and her little face turned red instantly. She was thin-skinned, but Yuki Yuichi was not so thin-skinned. He looked at the three people without blushing or beating his heart, and asked, what are you looking at? Don't you have childhood sweethearts? Seeing that the three of them were silent, Yuki Yuichi said again, no way, there is no one who really doesn't have a green plum, right, damn guy, I want to beat him so much. Asuma Sarutobi looked at the way he deserved a beating, and looked at the cute Hong again, clenched her fists and gritted her teeth. He was moved when he first saw Kurenai Yuhi, but at that time Kurenai Yuhi was holding hands with Uchiha Yuki. He gave up the idea, but now these two people are actually showing off their love here. Tolerable or unbearable? Uchiha Obito thought of Naruto, and he couldn't help himself when he saw the two of them showing their affection. Asuma Sarutobi looked at him, and they both rushed forward. Seeing this, Yuki Yuichi pulled Yuhi Kurenai and ran towards the training ground, shouting, you still have 20,000 years to beat me, damn it, go together, Asuma Sarutobi shouted, and he and Uchiha Obito chased after them. The four of them soon entered the forest. Looking at the backs of the four people, Kakashi Hatake couldn't help but curl up the corners of his mouth hidden under the mask. He also walked inside, thinking silently in his heart, this feeling seems to be pretty good. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35, Minato Namikaze number 039, S help? No. Kushina Uzumaki and number 039, S help. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at the scene in the crystal ball and smiled. It seems that this child Asuma has also found his own bond. Although he is the Hokage, it is difficult for an incorruptible judge to judge family affairs. Asuma Sarutobi and him don't have a very good relationship. He has always wanted to get rid of his own influence, so he is naturally very clear about these things. Although Asuma Sarutobi had people playing with him, needless to say, most of them were just trying to curry favor with him. But now, Asuma seems to have found his own friends. Yuki Yuichi Sarutobi Hiruzen murmured and picked up the document on the table containing various information about Yuki Yuichi. After a long while, he suddenly said, let Yumino Ikoku relax a little. Gifted children should be allowed to grow freely. Yes, a voice came from the ambu hiding in the dark, where only the voice could be heard but the person could not be seen on the other side. Yuki Yuichi and Yuhi Kurenai ran to the training ground, but when he saw the training ground, Yuki Yuichi stopped and looked ahead in shock. The two people behind were still chasing, but when they saw the training ground hidden in the forest, they stopped and their mouths opened slightly. They thought that the training ground here should be just an open space, but when they saw the training ground, they both found out that they were wrong. This is indeed an open space, but it is surrounded by trees and contains some training equipment. There were 4 or 5 wooden stakes, a locked ninja tool rack, and even a wooden resting area with a not-so-small medical kit on the bench. You have to know that the training grounds in Konoha only have some wooden stakes, but nothing else. There is one here. At this moment, Kakashi Hatake also came over. When he saw these things, He looked the same as Yuchi. On the contrary, Yuhi Kurenai didn't feel anything about the place, but looked at the shocked four people strangely. "What's wrong with you?" Zairi Hong asked curiously, and then looked around nervously. "Is there any problem here?" Yuki Yuichi came back to his senses from the shock at this time, and then explained, "No, it's just that there were no such things here yesterday." "Huh?" Yuhi Kurenai was confused. She thought these things had always existed. After all, Yuki said yesterday that this was a training ground opened by Minato Namokaze. Yuki Yuichi did not continue speaking, but looked at Hatake Kakashi. Hatake Kakashi was also looking at him at this time, and there was confusion in both of their eyes. Logically speaking, not many people here should know about this, and even if they knew, how could they arrange these things here? Just as the two looked at each other, Uchiha Obito suddenly said, "Look, there seems to be something there." Uchiha Obito pointed to a piece of paper on top of the medical box and said upon hearing this, Yuki Yuichi turned his head to look, then trotted over after taking a look at the note. Yuki took a deep breath. "Brother Minato is such a good man." Hatake Kakashi came over, looked at the note, and asked, "What does it say?" "Let me show you," Yuki said, handing the note to Kakashi. Hatake after a long while, Hatake Kakashi also took a deep breath. This note was left by Minato Namokaze. There wasn't much written on it. Just a few words, but these words touched Yuki and Kakashi. Hatake, what Minato Namokaze left behind was very simple, that is, this training ground would be handed over to the two of them in the future. He repaired it so that the two of them could use it with confidence. Uchiha Obito and Sarutobi Asuma leaned on Hatake Kakashi's shoulders, one on each side, and also saw the contents of the note. "My old man said that Namokaze Jonin is the best and kindest person in Konoha," Asuma Sarutobi said with a sigh, "and he also has the title of Little Son." "It seems that the old man didn't lie to me." "Little Son?" Uchiha Obito was puzzled and asked curiously, "What does this mean?" Glancing at Uchiha Obito, Hatake Kakashi explained, "It means that Brother Minato is as warm as the sun. You're free to die." Before Uchiha Obito could say anything, Kurenai suddenly realized something and hammered the palm of her other hand with one hand. Uchiha Obito suddenly realized, so this is what Little Son means. He sounds like a big brother with a good personality. A medical kit, a pavilion for resting, 4 wooden stakes, a ninja tool cabinet, and some military ration pills. Yuki Yuichi muttered to himself as he walked to the ninja tool cabinet and opened it directly. Then he saw some unsharpened kunai, shurikens and senbon. Minato Namokaze is an honest man. Yuki Yuichi sighed in his heart. On the other side, at Namokaze Minato's house, Uzumaki Kushina chased him and asked, "How's it going? Has it been delivered?" Seeing Uzumaki Kushina's expectant look, Namokaze Minato smiled helplessly. "Kushina, don't worry, I've already sent it over." "That's good." Uzumaki Kushina patted her own thunder and breathed a sigh of relief. Namokaze Minato was a little puzzled. "Kushina, if you want to help Yuki Yuichi, you can go by yourself. Why do you want me to send you there?" Upon hearing this, Uzumaki Kushina snorted and folded her arms. "You should ask that old man, the Hokage. Even though he didn't say it, Yuchi-chan has the Sharingan, so he definitely won't let me get close to him." As she spoke, she touched her lower abdomen with a look of loss in her eyes. The nine-tailed fox is a power, but it is also a cage, so even if Sarutobi Hiruzen didn't say it, she was still quite aware of it. Upon hearing this, Minato Namokaze also looked at her lower abdomen and sighed. "Don't worry, I will take good care of Yuchi," Namokaze Minato said, and smiled gently again. "And I like this child very much." Uzumaki Kushina heard his words and rushed over. "Minato, I knew you were the best." Holding Uzumaki Kushina, Namokaze Minato smiled helplessly but happily. "I have to go on a mission. When I come back, I will ask the Hokage to let you teach Yuki Yuichi." "Are you going on another mission?" Uzumaki Kushina was stunned, then looked at him with some concern. "Don't worry, with the Flying Thunder God technique, I'll be fine." At this time, Yuki didn't know that the things here were not actually the work of Minato Namokaze. If it was a normal interaction, Minato Namokaze would not have given these things. After all, these things are quite expensive and take time to get. This is Uzumaki's gift. Although his last name is not Uzumaki, he is still Uzumaki Yuichi. His father Uzumaki Aosu used the pseudonym Yuki Aosu in order to hide himself, and he did not leave the Uzumaki clan. This was an important reason why Uzumaki Kushina helped him. Chapter 36, Obito and number 039, S-Rise. Isn't it just right that there are so many things and complete facilities here? Uchiha Obito jumped out first, looking at Hatake Kakashi and laughing wildly. "Kakashi, I said I was going to challenge you. This time I'm going to beat the shit out of you." Uchiha Obito's voice was full of confidence, which made Asuma Sarutobi, who was confused, excited. He had seen the fight between Hotake Kakashi and Yuki Yuichi before and knew something about their strength, but he didn't know anything about Uchiha Obito, the young man from the Uchiha family. However, the Uchiha people are all representatives of genius in the ninja school, and I think Uchiha Obito is the same. This is such an anticipated battle. Asuma Sarutobi looked at the two men expectantly. Yuki Yuichi was listening to him from the side, looked at him strangely, but didn't say anything. If you like to imagine, then go ahead. Is Uchiha Obito strong among civilians? Uchiha Obito's strength is not bad, and it can even be said that he is very strong. After all, he is still an Uchiha. However, among the ninja clan or the descendants of ninjas, his strength is not enough. He is the type who is not as good as the best, but better than the worst. Hotake Kakashi looked at Uchiha Obito, thought for a moment, and then nodded. Can, but the one who got beaten is you. Uchiha Obito, under Asuma Sarutobi's expectant gaze, the two stood in the middle of the venue and made opposing sigils with each other. Kurenai whispered beside Yuki Yuichi, Yuichi, who will win? Upon hearing this, Yuki Yuichi stared at Hotake Kakashi without turning his head. Of course it's 50-50, eh? But isn't Uchiha Obito the Uchiha genius? Kurenai Yuhi was puzzled. Although she was not particularly clear about many things, she had heard the rumor that the Uchiha were geniuses in the ninja school. Yuki Yuichi turned his head and looked at Kurenai Yuhi, revealing a smile. Obito's talent is very strong, but his talent is not in ninjutsu and taijutsu. Zihong was even more confused now. She blinked her big eyes and looked at him curiously, hoping that he could tell her. Seeing this, Yuki didn't say much, but used his hands to mess up Kurenai's hair again. You can find out when you go back this afternoon and ask Uncle Zhenhong. Compared with ordinary people, Uchiha's talents are also reflected in the personalities. The kinder and more emotional he is, the stronger his talent will be. Many Uchiha are like this. For example, Uchiha Madara opened his eyes for the first time when he broke up with Senju Hashirama. It can be said that Uchiha Madara is powerful and arrogant, but it cannot be said that he has no feelings. There are also Uchiha Shisu and Uchiha Itachi, both of whom are emotionally rich. The most representative Yuki Yuichi turned his gaze to Uchiha Obito. He is the most emotional Uchiha, no doubt about it. At this time, the two of them had already started to move. Kakashi Hotake held a wooden sword in his hand and looked at Uchiha Obito vigilantly. He didn't have much contact with Uchiha Obito, and didn't know his strength and talent, so he treated him as an Uchiha genius. Uchiha Obito was quite proud to see Hotake Kakashi like this. Be prepared, Kakashi, Uchiha Obito said, and rushed towards Hotake Kakashi. Seeing his actions, Hotake Kakashi frowned slightly. Why are these actions full of flaws? Was it specially shown to me? Hotake Kakashi thought about it, and felt a nameless anger rising in his heart. Stop looking down on others. As he said this, he rushed forward with a wooden sword. It's begun. It's begun. Asuma Sarutobi held his breath and looked at the two of them without blinking. Bump. The wooden sword hit Uchiha Obito's head straight, and his head suddenly became prominent and a big bump appeared. Uchiha Obito immediately squatted on the ground with his hands covering his head in pain. Kakashi Hotake looked at the wooden sword in his hand, then looked at Uchiha Obito who was squatting on the ground, and finally looked at Yuki Yuichi, and suddenly he didn't know what to say. Didn't you expose your flaws to me on purpose just now? Asuma Sarutobi, who was concentrating on watching an exciting fight, had a frozen expression on his face. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? He only saw the two men colliding with each other and thought that a wonderful duel was going to take place, but in his eyes, Uchiha Obito caught Hotake Kakashi's wooden sword with his head. That's right, it wasn't Hotake Kakashi who hit him on the head, it was his head that hit the wooden sword. Obito, Kurenai Yuhi saw this scene beside Yuki Yuichi, and even though she was as gentle as she was, she couldn't bear to watch it. Obito, Yumi. Sigh. Yuki Yuichi walked in front of Uchiha Obito, hesitated for a long time, and finally turned into a sigh. He thought that this kid would lose badly, but he didn't expect that the kid would lose because he used his head to catch the wooden sword. I really don't know where to start complaining about this. Uchiha Obito squatted on the ground and covered his head for a while, then stood up with a big bump on his head. Seeing that everyone seemed to be hesitant to speak, he immediately said with a red face, I'm not ready. At this moment, the boy's blushing face surpassed everything. Yuki Yuichi gave him a meaningful look. When Uchiha Obito thought he understood him, Yuki Yuichi nodded, patted his shoulder and said, it's okay, we all understand. Yuki Yuichi's words made Yuhi Kurenai and Sarutobi Asuma nodded. It's okay, Obito, just fight back next time. Sarutobi Asuma walked up to him with a smile and put his arm around his shoulders. Never give up is the belief of a ninja. Asuma Sarutobi was trying to comfort him, but it just hurt more to his ears. You wait for me, I will definitely defeat you. Uchiha Obito pointed at Hatake Kakashi. When I open my eyes, I will definitely beat you up, Uchiha Obito said as he took out eye drops from his pocket and dripped them in with his head raised. Sarutobi Asuma asked curiously. Is this a special potion for opening the Sharingan? Before Uchiha Obito could speak, Hatake Kakashi pointed to the bottle with the words eye drops written on it and said, no, that's eye drops. As he said this, Hatake Kakashi sneered with a pair of dead fish eyes. Give up, you will never be able to beat me in your life. I've never heard of anyone Sharingan being activated by eye drops. Trying to open the Sharingan with eye drops is simply idiotic. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Uchiha Obito looking at Yuki Yuichi strangely. Yuki Yuichi walked up to him with a smile and put his arm around his shoulders. Woo-wake, are you talking about me? Chapter 37, Laughing Vortex. Although Uchiha Yuichi's Sharingan was given by a template, to outsiders, it seemed that his Sharingan was opened with the eye drops of Uchiha Obito. Therefore, Kakashi Hatake's words not only criticized Uchiha Obito, but also scolded Uchiha Yuichi. Looking at Uchiha Yuichi who had his arm around his shoulders, Kakashi Hatake was stunned. Oh no, I forgot this guy was awakened by eye drops. After hearing what Uchiha Yuichi said, he felt numb. Uchiha Obito covered his head and walked to the pavilion nearby. Seeing this, Kurenai Yuhi took out a swelling reducing ointment from the medical box and handed it to him. Now, this is for you. My father said that this ointment is very effective and can make the swelling go away in just one day. Uchiha Obito took the ointment and rubbed it carefully on his head. Hiss, it hurts so much. At this moment, Sarutobi Asuma's voice reached the ears of the two men. Look, a fight is about to start. Kurenai Yuhi stood up, walked to the edge of the venue, and looked at Uchiha Yuichi worriedly. Uchiha Obito was sitting on a bench, applying medicine to himself while watching Uchiha Yuichi and Kakashi Hatake performing the seal of opposition. Yuki Yuichi, you can't beat me this time, said Hatake Kakashi, and rushed forward with a wooden sword in his hand. Seeing this, Uchiha Yuichi also rushed forward. Yuichi, come on, beat Kakashi hard. Uchiha Obito also stood up at this time and cheered for Yuki Yuichi. Upon hearing this, Asuma Sarutobi glanced at Uchiha Obito and then shouted as well, Kakashi, come on, we can't lose again. Kurenai Yuhi was at the front, but she didn't say anything. Instead, she looked at Yuki Yuichi with some concern. Uchiha Obito and Sarutobi Asuma looked at each other, their eyes collided in the air, and a faint arc seemed to flash at the same time. The volume of their shots also increased. Whether it was Hatake Kakashi or Uchiha Yuichi, both of them tacitly agreed not to use ninjutsu. Ninjutsu is too dangerous for them, and they haven't quite mastered it yet. Besides, there are no teachers here, so if they lose control, they'll be doomed. Therefore, the two used physical skills and swordsmanship throughout the process. Uchiha Yuichi rushed straight towards Kakashi Hatake. He had the passive ninja taijutsu, defense which reduced damage by 20%, and taijutsu was the most suitable for him. Knock knock sht, Yuichi. The two men shouted at each other and approached each other rapidly. The wooden sword in Kakashi Hatake's hand was wrapped in a gust of wind and chopped towards Uchiha Yuichi's head. Uchiha Yuichi kicked Hatake Kakashi in the lower abdomen. However, at the moment when both of them were about to be hit, they adjusted their bodies and dodged the opponent's attack at the same time. They both said in unison, you still want to hit me with this? The two of them talked, but their actions did not pause at all. Relying on his strong physical strength, Yuki Yuichi took one foot forward while his other foot floated in the air, and kicked Hatake Kakashi's arm from the right side. Seeing this, Hatake Kakashi didn't hesitate at all and rolled behind him, but Yuki Yuichi was extremely fast. And no matter how fast Kakashi Hatake dodged, he was still a little slow. According to the distance, Yuki Yuichi's kick would have hit his arm, but because of his movements, the kick would have hit his waist directly. Kakashi Hatake naturally noticed this, and tried to block with a wooden sword in his hand. But Yuki Yuichi kicked the wooden sword directly in half. This kick broke through the wooden sword and hit Hatake Kakashi directly, sending him flying 3 or 4 meters. This is already an extraordinary power in the ordinary world, but this is the world of Naruto. Although Uchiha Yuichi's strength is very great, it is far from being called super strength. Hatake Kakashi crashed into the wooden stake, causing it to tremble. Hatake Kakashi stood up, ignoring the pain in his body, looked at the wooden sword in his hand that was broken into a small section, and threw it away. You've become stronger again, but I've also become stronger. As Hatake Kakashi said this, he rushed forward. ready to start a physical battle with Yuki Yuichi. Yuki Yuichi saw this and laughed. Good job, a real man should punch hard. As he spoke, Yuki Yuichi also rushed forward. When the two came into contact, Yuichi immediately felt that Kakashi Hatake's arm strength was not weak at all, but this is normal. He practices Hatake swordsmanship and has to practice chopping every day. It would be strange if the strength in his hands is weak. Asuma Sarutobi and Obito Uchiha, who were cheering on the side, stopped at this time. Instead, he stared at the two of them blankly. Is this the strength of these two? Asuma Sarutobi looked at the two of them in a trance, with envy in his eyes. If he had such great talent and strength, no one would talk about his father. He also wants to be recognized. The battle between Yuichi and Kakashi Hatake continues. Yuichi is very strong, but Hatake Kakashi is also very strong. Although he is not as strong as him, his attack power is also very strong, and Hatake Kakashi is more flexible than him. Under the guidance of Hatake Tsukumo, Hatake Kakashi was trained according to a standard ninja training method. Caught off guard, Kakashi Hatake punched him in the chest, and his blood surged. His throat felt hot, and blood was about to gush out, but when he glanced at Yuhi Kurenai out of the corner of his eye, Yuichi forced himself to hold it back. Crouching low, Yuichi breathed heavily, his head raised, looking at Hatake Kakashi. His condition is not much better than mine. The kick I just gave him hindered his movements, and he was hit a few times by me afterwards. At this time, there was an obvious fist mark around Kakashi Hatake's right eye, which was dark blue and purple at the same time. His right eye was swollen. After recovering for a while, Yuichi stood up again. The blood of the Vortex clan greatly increased his recovery ability. Although he could not recover instantly, he could still recover some of his condition after a rest. Seeing him stand up, Hatake Kakashi also took a fighting stance, but he still said, "Huh? This punch doesn't hurt, this is mine. Hit with all your strength." Kakashi Hatake was still breathing heavily and speaking intermittently, while Yuichi had calmed down a lot and tore off his clothes that were torn by the battle. His upper body was exposed, and there was a dark blue fist mark on his chest. For a normal person, this is considered a serious injury. The punch was very heavy and hit the chest, but for the Uzumaki clan, this level is simply not worth mentioning. Throwing away the torn clothes, Yuichi laughed wildly. It's just a serious injury, there's nothing to be afraid of. Continue, Yuki. Yuichi's voice sounded full of energy. This made Kakashi Hatake's heart skip a beat. How did he recover so quickly? But this was no longer the time to continue thinking. As Yuichi rushed towards him, he had consumed a lot of his strength before and has not recovered yet. For a moment, he could only resist hastily. Yuichi's punches were heavier than the last, making him groan in pain. Good opportunity. Yuichi's eyes lit up. He seized a gap left by Kakashi Hatake and grabbed his arms directly, swinging them hard at the same time. Hatake Kakashi flew backwards. Kakashi, it's not shameful to lose to me. What's shameful is not daring to face me. I would like to call you the strongest. Chapter 38, Friends and Number 039, Success Makes Me Sadder. Yuichi stood in the center of the training ground, full of energy, and looked at Kakashi Hatake. The fight between the two looks fierce, but it is actually not safe. Hatake Kakashi stood up and felt pain all over his body. However, he saw this pain as a test for himself. His father told him since he was a child that a ninja is someone who has to endure what ordinary people cannot endure. Just then, Yuhi Kurenai came over with a medical kit. Minato Namikaze probably didn't expect that this medical kit would be used in such a short time. After Yuichi and Kakashi Hatake applied the medicine, they sat in the pavilion looking at Yuichi with his upper body naked and a dark blue fist mark on his chest. Kakashi Hatake carefully applying medicine to himself, and the rising star Uchiha Obito Asuma Sarutobi swallowed, but soon his eyes showed excitement. This kind of battle makes him excited. Looking at Hatake Kakashi, who was applying medicine, Yuichi touched the wound on his chest, then stood up and said, "Everyone, get ready to start training. It's better not to have such battles happen too often." Huh? Asuma Sarutobi was stunned, then looked at him. Hatake Kakashi nodded. This will delay training. Yuichi actually wanted to practice tree climbing today, but unexpectedly, he got a little too excited and had a fight with Hatake Kakashi. It seems that I can't practice today at this moment. Zihong looked at everyone and suggested quietly, "How about we take a look around here?" Yuichi was stunned when he heard that, then looked at Hatake Kakashi and said, "Do you know what's around here?" Hatake Kakashi heard this and shook his head. "I don't know, I don't actually come here very often. I always practice at home or at Konoha's training grounds. Although I discovered this place before, I don't have much demand for it." He just suddenly thought of this place yesterday. He had never been here many times before. Skipping classes requires a secluded place to practice, and he just remembered that there was such a place. Forget it, let's go take a look around later. Yuki Yuichi rubbed Yuhi Kurenai's little head, then lay down on the bench. Yuhi Kurenai looked at Yuki Yuichi lying on his legs, thought for a moment, nodded, and then moved his head down. In that case, I will also practice seriously, Zairi Hong said, clenching her hands with a serious look, but I also have people I want to protect. As Yuhi Kurenai said this, she ran to the training ground to practice the fire style, dragon fire technique that Yuhi Shinku taught her yesterday. Seeing this, Asuma Sarutobi and Uchiha Obito looked at each other and ran up as well. Zairi Hong is so self-disciplined and serious, how could they lose? The Uchiha clan taught Uchiha Obito the fire style, Great Fireball Jutsu 2 days ago after he entered school. This can also be regarded as Uchiha's support to his clan members after Uchiha Obito becomes a Jonin and a Chunin. He will also be given ninjutsu. The same is true for Asuma Sarutobi. He also learned the fire style, Great Flame technique when he entered school. This is a secret fire style ninjutsu passed down from generation to generation by the Sarutobi clan. It involves spitting out fierce flames from the mouth. The fire is so intense that anyone hit by this move will be reduced to ashes in an instant. This is the descendant of the ninja clan. Even a clan member like Uchiha Obito, who didn't perform well, still had resources for ninjutsu. Watching the three of them practicing ninjutsu, Yuki Yuichi turned his head and looked while lying on the bench. There are 5 of them here, but they can't even perform a water-style ninjutsu. They are all fire-style ninjutsu. Hatake Kakashi did not practice, and his whole body was still in severe pain. Hatake Kakashi sat on the bench, helplessly looking at Yuki Yuichi lying beside him. I said, you really don't want to go to training? Your injury shouldn't be a big problem, right? Upon hearing this, Uchiha Yuyu closed his eyes and said lazily, you hit me and caused internal injuries. I can't train today. Upon hearing this, Hatake Kakashi's mouth twitched. After knowing Uchiha Yuki for a while, he has discovered that this guy has an extraordinary physique. He was very clear that the injury he caused to Uchiha Yuki would not affect normal training at all. However, looking at Uchiha Yuki lying lazily on the bench, Kakashi Hatake still didn't say it on the training ground. Kurenai Yuhi was conscientiously making hand seals while trying her best to control the chakra in her body. Success, must succeed. Zaruhan prayed silently in her heart. Although she was worried about Uchiha Yuki during the battle between Uchiha Yuki and Kakashi Hatake just now, it was impossible for her to say that she didn't feel anything. Yuchi is so awesome, I can't hold him back. I want to protect Yuchi too. Zairi Hong's face was serious and the seal in her hand had been completed. The next moment, a pillar of fire that was neither long nor large spurted out of her mouth, burning the surface of the wooden stake 4 or 5 meters in front of her into pitch black color. Seeing this, Uchiha Obito, who had just gathered chakra in his throat and was ready to spit it out, coughed and bent over to cough out some sparks and black smoke. This, Uchiha Obito was shocked and looked at Kurenai Yuhi in disbelief. He never thought that he would lose to Yuhi Kurenai in ninjutsu. Asuma Sarutobi saw this scene and was also shocked. Are you kidding me? Ignoring the expressions of the two, Yuhi Kurenai jumped for joy when she saw this. Great, I also used fire escape. Hearing the sound, Yuki Yuichi opened his eyes, then looked at Kurenai Yuhi, then looked at the burnt wooden stake, and looked at Kakashi Hatake in confusion. Did Hong do this? Upon hearing this, Hatake Kakashi glanced at him, then nodded slightly. Yeah. After getting the answer, Yuki Yuyu stood up in an instant and walked towards Yuhi Kurenai. Yuchi, I also used the dragon fire jutsu. Yuhi Kurenai looks very happy. Standing in front of Yuki Yuichi, with an expression like I'm so great, come and praise me. Yuki Yuichi naturally did not hesitate to give praise, and touched Yuhi Kurenai's little head. Kurenai is amazing. Zairi Kurenai smiled innocently. I will protect Yuchi too, Yuhi Kurenai said, paused, and then added, and Dad, yes. Yuki Yu nodded. Hong will definitely become a powerful ninja. Family members, who knows, others learn ninjutsu first, and not only that, they also show off their love in front of you. Uchiha Obito and Sarutobi Asuma looked at each other and saw discomfort in each other's eyes. A friend's success is more heartbreaking than your own failure, especially after they succeeded. They showed off their love, which was more painful than killing them both. Chapter 39, Ninjutsu Defense Level 2. Training can't last all day and in the afternoon. They can no longer skip classes, otherwise, there would be no difference between a ninja school with them or without them. Did you go to ninja school? Yes. Where is he? No, they arrived at the classroom on time. When the 5 of them arrived at the classroom, The originally chaotic classroom instantly became quiet when the civilian ninjas in the front row saw them. Most of them had jealousy in their eyes. I am jealous of their good families, jealous that they are more successful than me, and jealous that they don't have to study here. Most of the students in the back row were envious. They weren't jealous at all. Everyone is the same. They just skip classes. What is there to be jealous of? But the envy is real. Not everyone dares to skip classes. Nahorin was a little worried when she saw Uchiha Obito, but when she saw Yuki Yuichi and the others, she did not step forward. On the contrary, Uchiha Obito came forward excitedly when he saw Nahorin. Lin, I'm telling you, this morning Uchiha Obito tirelessly talked to Nahorin about what happened in the morning. Nahorin listened quietly with a smile on her face, but when she saw his rise to prominence, she couldn't help but laugh. Rin, what are you laughing at? Uchiha Obito was puzzled. Obito, you're so funny like this. Nahorin poked a big bump on his head, and Uchiha Obito immediately grinned. Nahorin was stunned when she saw this. Then looked at him apologetically. Obito, I'm sorry. I didn't know you. Before she could finish her words, Uchiha Obito waved his hand. It's okay. It will be fine soon. Let me bandage it for you. Looking at Nahorin, who was bandaging Uchiha Obito, Yuki Yuichi smiled, then sat down in his seats with Yuhi. Kurenai, Yuichi, where did you go this morning? Might Guy came over and asked curiously. At the same time, he admonished, it's wrong for you to skip classes. Youth should study hard. Looking at Might Guy, Yuki Yuichi took out a bag with 3 colored meatballs in it. He took out a bunch of them, handed them to Might Guy, and said, Kai, this is for you. At the same time, he replied, we went to training in the morning. Youth means constantly improving yourself. Seize every opportunity to improve yourself. Just as the two were talking, Ikoku Yumino walked in and glanced at Yuki Yuichi and the others. He didn't say anything else, but picked up a book on the Will of Fire. Students, this class is still about chakra refining and literacy. Now open the 3rd page of the Will of Fire. Yuki Yuichi and Yuhi Kurenai looked at each other. They thought they were going to be criticized. Not only them, but also Kakashi Hatake, Asuma Sarutobi and Obito Uchiha were also confused. All 5 of them were prepared to be criticized. As a result, the teacher acted as if nothing happened. Just when Yuki was confused, a light blue panel suddenly appeared in front of him. Achievement, I can do whatever I want. I will skip the classes I can skip, and I will skip the classes I can't skip even more. I will skip first and then scold you. The village chief has given me permission. This is a genius. Reward, ninjutsu, defense, ninjutsu, defense. Passively gain 20% damage reduction effect. Maybe you can try to resist the Heavenly Shock Star and see what the Pure Land looks like. Ninjutsu, defense upgrade. Ninjutsu, defense LV2, ninjutsu, defense LV2, passively gain 20% damage reduction effect. Can be activated for 1 second, damage reduction effect doubled, cooldown for 1 day. This time you finally see hope of resisting the Heavenly Abyss Star. Why should I resist the Heavenly Obstacle Star? Looking at the achievement rewards that suddenly appeared, especially seeing its final introduction, I couldn't help but complain. What sin have I committed that I have to fight against the Heavenly Aiding Star? Although there are many flaws, Yuki still sets his sights on this achievement. It was the first time he knew that this thing could be upgraded from a constant passive damage reduction of 20% to actively turning on double the damage reduction. This wave of improvement is almost zero. It sounds like so much damage reduction is very powerful, but in reality, after 1 blow, the damned will die. A ninja sword won't become less sharp just because of damage reduction. Even if a ninja sword reduces damage by 50%, you will still die, unless the damage is reduced by 100%. Imagine that you are fighting with someone, and the other person's kunai is about to stab you, but you confidently activate this ability. The kunai, which could have been easily inserted, encountered some obstacles, but still went in. Or was the kunai only inserted 60%? At this moment, Yuki even thought of the iron block in the neighboring pirate world. It seemed that he was too confident, so he stood there and got beaten stupidly. No. Can't think about it. Can't use it. Yuki shook his head and made up his mind that it would be best not to use this ability if possible. If this becomes a habit, he can't imagine how miserable he will be in the future. Maybe he really is like someone who is missing a string in his head, and he runs under Madara-sama to resist the tensei. Yuhi Kurenai's voice gradually became clearer. Yuki came back to his senses, turned his head to look at her and smiled. What happened? It's okay. Zihong shook her head and looked at him worriedly. Just now you were staring at the table without moving, and the expression on your face was very strange. You cry sometimes and laugh sometimes. I'm a little worried about you, Zihong said. The worry in her eyes did not fade away. Why don't you go home today and let Dad take you to the hospital? As she said this, she looked at Yuki Yuichi's chest. My chest is injured and my brain is not working well. I'm fine. I was just thinking. Oh, Yuhi Kurenai nodded and said no more. Instead, she held the book and listened carefully to Umino Ikoku's lecture. Yuki Yuichi once again immersed his mind in the achievement panel. This time, his focus was on introducing the achievements. I will skip classes that I can skip, and I will skip classes that I can't skip even more. I will skip first and then scold you. The village chief has given me permission. This is a genius. It can be clearly seen from this sentence that this achievement was achieved by skipping classes. The village chief granted permission. This is genius. These two sentences make it even more obvious. Did that old man Sarutobi Hirozen say anything? Yuki thought silently in his heart. Sometimes the achievement system pops up inexplicably and can also provide information. This wave is intelligence. Yuchi looking at this introduction. It is not difficult to guess that Sarutobi Hirozen used the fact that he was a genius as an excuse to ask Umino Ikoku to stay out of his own way. This also explains why Umino Ikoku didn't call them to his office to reprimand them like he did yesterday. Although they may not be monitored too much, they will not be told that they can skip classes at will. When Yuki thought of this, a smile appeared on his lips. There will be no burden for skipping classes in the future. Ikoku Umino, who is explaining the will of fire at the podium and teaching students to read and write, inadvertently saw Yuki Yuichi's smile and his heart suddenly tightened. Why did I suddenly feel a chill on my back? Chapter 40. Kakashi is such a bad student. The afternoon classes were still so boring. Yuki Yuichi guessed what Sarutobi Hirozen was thinking, but Hatake Kakashi and the others didn't. Even Yuhi Kurenai spent the entire afternoon looking at Umino Ikoku anxiously, fearing that he would call them out and scold them at any time. However, they were bound to overthink it until the end of the school day. Umino Ikoku never called them. Yuchi, the teacher didn't criticize us, Zihong said in a low voice, with a smile on her face, a silly smile. Hey, let's go home quickly later, otherwise if the teacher remembers it, we will be doomed. Yuhi Kurenai thought that Umino Ikoku had forgotten about it, and she carefully poked Yuki Yuichi with her hand. Ikoku Umino was talking in front when his ears suddenly moved. When he heard what Yuhi Kurenai said, the corners of his mouth twitched. Okay, I'll pretend I don't know about this. Do you think I forgot about it? Yuhi Kurenai's words made Yuki Yuichi feel a little amused and helpless. No matter what, Umino Ikoku is still a chunin. How could he forget such a thing? Thinking about it, he patted Zihong's head and said, it's okay, the teacher is not so stingy. After hearing what Yuhi Kurenai said, Umino Ikoku focused all his attention on them. After hearing this, he nodded with satisfaction in his heart. Soon, the school bell rang. Umino Ikoku didn't drag it out, but directly announced the end of school. But just when Yuki Yuichi and his companions were about to jump out of the window, Umino Ikoku coughed softly. Yuki Yuichi, come with me. He has a crush on Yuki Yuichi. Although I thought he was a troublesome student when we first met, I later found out that he was not that troublesome, especially yesterday when they skipped class. The two of them were together, and Yuki Yuichi's attitude of admitting his mistake was also very good. It can be seen from the looks of it that he is a good boy. I probably skipped class today because I was tricked by Hatake Kakashi. Umino Ikoku thought, glanced at Hatake Kakashi, and then sighed heavily. This made Kakashi Hatake confused. Teacher, what are you doing? Looking at me and sighing for no apparent reason? Just when he was confused, Yuki passed by him and couldn't help but patted his shoulder. Kakashi, don't be like this. The teacher is doing this for your own good. Hearing this, Hatake Kakashi looked at him in a daze, pointed at himself, then pointed at Yuki Yuichi. You. Not me. Kakashi Hatake was a little incoherent, and at this moment, there were 10,000 alpacas running wildly in his heart at this time. Ikoku Umino had a better feeling about Yuki Yuichi. Look, what a good child he must have been led astray by Kakashi, the bad guy. Ikoku Umino was thinking calmly in his heart that not only Yuki Yuichi, but also Kurenai Yuhi, and Uchiha Madara had been led astray. Even the Hokage's children have become like this. Thinking of this, Ikoku Umino looked at Hatake Kakashi with a somewhat unfriendly look, but still based on the idea that as a teacher he should be responsible for teaching, he earnestly advised, Kakashi, you have to learn from Yuichi and the others. Hatake Kakashi, while he was confused, Yuki Yuichi followed Umino Ikoku. Yuhi Kurenai's somewhat worried voice appeared in his ears. I hope Yuichi will be okay. Don't worry, Hong. Uchiha Madara's voice sounded carelessly. Yuichi is not someone who will be taught a lesson easily. Hatake. Kakashi turned his head and looked at him. then nodded. Although Uchiha Obito was a little stupid, he guessed it right by accident this time. There is nothing wrong with Ikoku-sensei's attitude towards Yuki Yuichi. Just now he glanced at Hatake Kakashi, then at Uchiha Obito, and felt relieved. Asuma Sarutobi sat in his seat, holding the back of his head with his hands. Should we wait for him here? Madara Shianko was sitting in front of Sarutobi Asuma. When she heard what they said, she couldn't help but ask curiously, by the way, where did you guys go this morning? Did you go to eat something delicious? When she talked about eating delicious food, her voice became excited. Looking at her, Yuhi Kurenai smiled. You are Anko-san, right? We went to train. Yuhi Kurenai's words made Madara Shianko a little uninterested. Compared with practicing, she preferred to lie in the classroom and listen to the teacher's lecture in a daze. While they were discussing, Yuki Yuichi followed behind Yumino Ikoku, and was also a little curious about what the teacher wanted him to do. I followed Yumino Ikoku to a secluded place and stopped just when Yuki Yuichi was curious. Yumino Ikoku turned around and looked at him with a smile. Yuichi, can you tell the teacher where you went this morning? Yumino Ikoku's idea was very simple. The Hokage just told him to turn a blind eye, so is it okay for me to ask? Yuki Yuichi looked at him in surprise, then nodded. There was nothing wrong with saying this. We ran into Minato-sama and the Hokage-sama yesterday. You should know this teacher, right? Yuki Yuichi said, looking at Yumino Ikoku. He nodded. Yuki had mentioned this in the Will of Fire class yesterday, so he knew about it too. Yuki Yuichi continued, we went to the training ground on top of Hokage Rock yesterday, and that's when we met Brother Minato, so Kakashi is taking us there for training today. Upon hearing this, Kano Ikoku nodded in sudden realization. Now he finally understood why they skip classes. Although skipping classes was not right, he also understood that the current curriculum was too boring for these children who already knew it. Since you are not going there to play or wander around, just turn a blind eye. Yumino Ikoku thought about it, and smiled as he let Yuki Yuichi leave and go home first. However, when Yuki turned and left, Ikoku Yumino remembered the purpose of asking Yuki to follow him, and immediately spoke. If that's the case, then you guys should come to school this morning and then skip classes to go train, but you must come to class in the afternoon. What Kano Ikoku said was beyond doubt, and Yuki nodded. Even if the teacher hadn't said it, he would have come in the afternoon. The reason is simple. You can't go to school and not see your own people. Also, the afternoon class is Will of Fire. He is the successor of the Will of Fire, and he must listen. Not only does he listen, he also takes notes. After he left, Yumino Ikoku sighed. What a self-disciplined boy. As he spoke, he suddenly realized something. Kakashi took them to the training ground again. Yumino Ikoku murmured softly. Then his face turned red. I knew it was Kakashi. Yuki Yuichi is such a good kid, but he has led him astray like this. Ikoku Yumino was very angry at this time. If Hatake Kakashi were here, he would definitely criticize him severely. Chapter 41, Born Evil. Yuki Yu. When Yuki returned to the classroom, he saw Kurenai's worried gaze. Seeing her appearance, Yuki Yuichi smiled, gently hugged Yuhi Kurenai, and touched her little head with one hand. Okay, it's okay. When the other people around saw this scene, they immediately felt like they had eaten shit. Uchiha Obito glanced at Nahorin with some envy in his eyes. He also wants to be like this with Lin. Uchiha Obito thought silently in his heart, then looked at Yuichi who was holding Kurenai Yuhi, and gritted his teeth in his heart. Yuichi who was born evil. Nahorin looked at Yuki Yuichi and the other person with a bit of envy. She glanced at Hatake Kakashi who had a dark face standing aside, then looked at Uchiha Obito and smiled at him. By the way, what are you doing here? Yuki Yuichi and Yuhi Kurenai separated, looked at everyone, and asked curiously, school is over, shouldn't we go home? Everyone is a little worried about you. Yuhi Kurenai was beside him. She noticed everyone's gaze and explained with a blushing face, so everyone is waiting for you here. Hearing what Yuhi Kurenai said, Uchiha was stunned, looked at everyone, and felt a little touched. At the same time, he explained, it's okay, the teacher just asked me where we went this morning. From now on, we only need to come to the classroom once before the morning class, and then we can go to training, Yuki Yuichi said, smiling at everyone, but you must come to class in the afternoon. Really? Upon hearing this, Uchiha Obito widened his eyes and became excited. Of course it's true. Yuki nodded, then opened his hands and smiled. Anyway, we are free. Ha. Seeing his appearance, Hatake Kakashi sighed. Although he didn't know why he felt a chill on his spine, this was probably a good thing. From now on, I can skip classes openly. Good. Everyone chatted joyfully for a while. and then went back to their homes walking on the road. Kurenai looked at Yuki Yuichi, feeling a little hesitant, but finally asked, "Yuichi, is there any problem with Kakashi?" "Huh? Why do you ask?" Yuki Yuichi looked at her in surprise. "Because you often looked at Kakashi when you spoke before," Kurenai said seriously, with her index finger against her lower lip. "Yuichi only does this when he's setting a trap for someone else. Growing up with Yuki Kurenai knows him better than she knows her own old father." Hearing what Kurenai said, Yuki Yuichi put his arm around her shoulders and said with a smile, "It's not like setting a trap for him, it's just that the teacher thinks that Kakashi has led us astray. I found out about the teacher's idea, and then I mentioned that Kakashi took us to the training ground." Seeing Yuki's smiling face, Kurenai couldn't help but laugh. "Yuichi, you are so bad then you like it." "Yeah, I like it." Zihong lowered her little head, nodded like a quail, and spoke in a very low voice. When the two returned home, Yuhi Shinku was already waiting for them at the dining table. Aunt Tada, X2. Upon hearing this, Zihong looked towards the door, saw the two people, and smiled. "Came back, you two are later than yesterday," Yuhi Shinku said, looking at Yuki Yuichi, pretending to be fierce, and said viciously, "You must have been playing on the way, Dad." Zihong puffed up her cheeks and pouted, "Don't you dare say that about Yuichi." The ferocious expression on Yuhi Shiku's face froze. "Isn't it said that daughters are like little cotton padded jackets? Why is my own home different?" Yuhi Shiku fell into doubt. Rather than saying that Kurenai is his little cotton padded jacket, it would be more accurate to say that she is the little cotton padded jacket of that bastard Yuki Yuichi. Yuki Yuichi looked at Yuhi Shinku and gave an awkward but polite smile. Then, under the gaze of his future father-in-law, he sat down at the table without any hesitation. "I'm so hungry," Yuki Yuichi said, rubbing his stomach. He didn't eat anything at noon, just a quick bite, and now he's starving. Seeing that he was really hungry, Yuhi Shiku didn't continue but brought out the food. "Eat." When Yuki saw the food, his eyes glowed red and he started to eat voraciously, as if he had been hungry for a long time. Seeing this, Yuhi Shiku looked at her daughter, a little curious and frowned at the same time. "What's wrong with him?" Zihong was also eating, her mouth was full, and she spoke incoherently. "Yanyi and Kakashi defeated a factory, the consumption was too great. Yuki has the blood of the Uzumaki clan and is naturally physique strong, but a strong physique also means greater consumption, so he eats more than ordinary people. In addition, he had consumed too much energy in today's battle with Kakashi Hatake and had not eaten much at noon, so he was naturally starving now." Even Zihong's appetite increased a lot today. She practiced ninjutsu in the morning, and the use of ninjutsu consumes chakra. Regardless of whether the ninjutsu was successful or not, chakra is born from the combination of energy in body cells and spiritual energy, so the consumption of chakra means the consumption of physical and mental energy. Practicing ninjutsu for a whole morning is no less than an intense exercise. During the meal, Yuhi Shiku listened to what Yuki Yuichi and Kurenai said, and understood what happened to them today. After finishing the meal, Kurenai rubbed her belly, looking satisfied, but when she looked at her old father, she was a little confused. "Dad, don't you want to eat?" Yuhi Shiku didn't eat. Judging from the looks of Yuki Yuichi and Yuhi Shinku, if he ate, it wouldn't be enough, but this could not be said. Zihong immediately laughed and said, "I had already eaten it before you came back." Yuki Yuichi had also finished eating by this time, but he was not as easy to fool as Kurenai. Looking at the dishes and chopsticks in front of Zihong, "Don't lie, you just haven't eaten yet," Yuki Yuichi said, looking at the empty bowl on the table, scratched his head, looked at Yuhi Shinku, and said embarrassedly, "How about going out for ramen?" "No thanks." Yuhi Shinku refused, and then said, "I really have eaten. I was going to eat something with you guys, but when I saw the way you look, I won't eat anymore." As Yuhi Shiku said this, she looked at Yuki Yuichi and smiled, as if praising his insight. "Next, we are about to start class, Chakra Changes in Form and Nature." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42, The Fate of Ninjas is surprisingly consistent. Looking at the two people in front of her, Yuhi Shiku smiled. He was not planning to teach them ninjutsu for the time being, but instead planned to talk to them about various knowledge about ninjas. These belong to the advanced knowledge of the ninja school, changes in form and properties. Zihong raised her hand and asked curiously, What is this? Glancing at her daughter, Yuhi Shinku explained, this is a change in chakra. As he spoke, he condensed a ball of chakra in his hand, and under the watchful eyes of Yuuki Yuichi and Yuhi Kurenai, he transformed it into various objects. Look, this is the change in the form of chakra. Both releasing and practicing ninjutsu require this kind of form change, Yuhi Shinku said without pausing. But looked at the two of them and continued, for example, the fire style, dragon fire technique that you two practiced, this ninjutsu requires a change of form, but the requirements for this ninjutsu are not high. You can perform it even if you have never learned it before, but in addition to that, there are some ninjutsu that require both form change and nature change to be performed together. Yuhi Shinku spoke tirelessly, occasionally demonstrating to the two of them as Yuuki Yuichi listened. His mind became clearer and clearer, and he soon understood the difference between the two. The change in chakra's form can be understood as the ability to control chakra, while the change in its nature increases its power. For example, if high-intensity form changes are required, then very good chakra control ability is actually required. The change in properties makes the flame stronger and the temperature higher. For example, when one performs the dragon fire technique, the temperature can normally reach 500 to 600 degrees, but after adding changes in properties, the temperature may reach 800 to 900 degrees or even 1000 degrees. Yuuki Yuichi now understood everything. He plans to train his chakra control tomorrow and practice nature changes later. Seeing his expression, Yuhi Shinku nodded secretly. She understood after listening to it once. He was worthy of being the red-haired boy she raised. Zai glanced at the sky outside. It was already past 7 in the evening and it was completely dark. You two should go and have some rest, Yuhi Shinku said, taking out some money from her pocket and giving it to Yuuki Yuichi, and then said, I will lead the team to carry out a mission tomorrow, which may take 5 or 6 days. You two should eat out during this time. Taking the money he gave, Yuuki Yuichi counted it in front of him, then looked up and said, not enough, not enough. Zai was confused. He had calculated it. How could it be not enough? Seeing his expression, Uchiha Yuichi said confidently, we have to train during this period of time. As he said that, he glanced at Zai and pretended to be sad. I'm fine. I can starve for a few days, but Hong is still growing. Poor Red, he's going to starve. Sunset is really red. If you want money, just take money. Why bring Hong into this? Just when he was speechless, Yuhi Kurenai looked at her old father, then looked at Yuuki Yuichi, and stood with him decisively, saying pitifully, it's okay, Yuichi, I'll starve with you. Upon hearing this, Yuhi's Hong took a deep breath and took out another 10,000 tael note. Don't say anything, don't say anything, this is for you. 10,000 taels can be said to be your latte bowl of Ichiraku ramen. Only costs 60 taels, and these 10,000 taels can last for a long time. Besides, they have just given some money, so they have more than 10,000 taels in their hands as expected. Yuuki Yuichi took the money from his hand and smiled. I will definitely take good care of Hong, Uncle Hong. Just go ahead and don't worry. Sunset is really red. He had never been so speechless as today. She said this as if she was going to die soon. Looking at the money in Yuuki Yuichi's hand, Yuhi Shinku snorted coldly, and then went to pack the supplies and ninja tools. He is the team leader, so he still needs to be prepared. Although it's just a mission to clear out bandits, he felt a little sad about the 10,000 ryo he just gave to Yuuki Yuichi, but when he thought that he had 3 good students who made money for him, he didn't feel so bad anymore. S-level tasks are worth more than 1 million each and are the most difficult. A-level tasks are worth between 150,000 and 1 million each. Each B-level task costs between 50,000 and 150,000. Each C-level task costs between 10,000 and 50,000. Each D-level mission costs between 3,000 and 10,000. As the leading Jonin, he would get half of it, and the remaining half would be divided equally among the other 3. Therefore, a newly graduated Jonin is a complete slave. However, this is also the tradition of this world. Being a team leader is not an easy job. You need to teach them all kinds of ninja knowledge and protect their safety. Looking at Yuhi Shiku's back, Yuuki thought silently, I want to be a team leader in the future too. It's easy, requires little work, is close to home, and most importantly, makes money quickly, without the hassle of working yourself to death to complete the task. This was Yuuki's normal thought at this time. He turned his head to look at Zairuhan, smiled at her, and gave her half of the money in his hand. Red, we're rich. Yeah. Yuhi Kurenai took the money, looked at Yuuki and smiled slightly, her eyes full of tenderness. She just deliberately cooperated with Yuuki's request for money. Although she didn't need so much money, She could cooperate if Yuichi asked for it. Without noticing Yuhi Kurenai's expression, Yuki Yuichi leaned close to her ear. "Come to my room tonight and I'll show you something nice." Hearing this, Zairi Hong was stunned, and then seemed to have thought of something, and said awkwardly, "This is not good. We are still young." She said the following sentence in a very low voice, almost inaudible. Yuki Yuichi didn't hear this, but looked at her seriously. Come on, it's beautiful." Looking at his appearance, Zairi Hong hesitated, but finally nodded. Seeing Yuhi Kurenai nod, Yuki Yuichi finally felt relieved. He put his arm around her shoulders and sat in the small courtyard to look at the stars, feeling the scent of Yuki Yuichi. Yuhi Kurenai's little face flushed and her head slowly leaned on his shoulder. Yuhi Shinku came out of the house and was stunned at first when she saw this scene. Then she smiled and went back to organize the supplies. The fate of the ninjas is surprisingly consistent. Basically, most ninjas either died in the line of duty or in war, and there were very few ninjas who could live to old age. Yuhi Shinku doesn't think he's one of them. He just thinks that if he dies in a mission one day, Yuhi Shinku will still have someone to rely on, and Uchiha Yuki has this ability. Moreover, these two little guys grew up together, our childhood sweethearts, and have a very good relationship. Moreover, I raised Uchiha Yuki and I know him well. Although naughty, he is indeed a good boy. Chapter 43, Home at Night. It was late at night when Kurenai Yuhi carefully opened the door of Yuki Yuichi's room. Yuichi told her that he would show him something nice, and she didn't forget it. Looking at Uchiha Yuki, who was sleeping soundly, Kurenai's little brain suddenly froze. Isn't it said that it is for yourself to see it look good? Why did you fall asleep? Looking at the sleeping Uchiha Yuki, she tilted her head and thought for a while, then moved closer to the bed and carefully poked his face. Yuchi has great skin, Yuhi Kurenai muttered to herself and continued to poke Yuki Yuichi with a smile on her face as if he sensed something. Yuki Yuichi frowned and smacked his lips. Seeing this, Yuhi Kurenai was about to give him one last poke and then leave, but just as she was about to do so, Yuki Yuichi moved, grabbing her hand and pulling her onto the bed. Zairi Hong instinctively wanted to scream, but immediately stopped herself. If this gets Yuchi or his father angry, I'll be so embarrassed. Yuki Yuichi pulled her onto the bed, then turned around and hugged her, feeling the breath coming out from his mouth and nose. Yuhi Kurenai suddenly blushed and buried her blushing face in Yuki Yuichi's chest. Girls always mature earlier than boys, especially in the world of Naruto where precocity is common. This is not what I want. It was Yuchi who forced me to hold him. Yuhi Kurenai made excuses for herself in her heart, and then she fell asleep peacefully leaning against Yuki Yuichi. The next day, early in the morning, Yuki Yuichi slowly opened his eyes, and what he saw was Yuhi Kurenai curled up in his arms like a kitten. His brain instantly shut down. Alice, not Yuki Yuichi, hadn't woken up from his sleep yet, but he woke up the moment he saw Kurenai Yuhi. At this moment, Yuhi Kurenai smacked her lips and murmured, "I like Yuchi the most, too." You're still talking in your sleep." Yuki Yuichi shook his head at Yuhi Kurenai, then turned to look at the alarm clock. It was still early for school. Sleep a little longer. Yuki Yuichi thought about it, hugged Yuhi Kurenai and closed his eyes again. At this time, Yuhi Kurenai carefully opened one eye and revealed a triumphant smile. Sometimes the hunter appears as the prey, like now. After seeing Uchiha Yuki closing his eyes, Kurenai Yuhi also closed her eyes again, but she didn't notice that Yuki Yuichi's mouth corners curled up. You're right. Sometimes the hunter appears as the prey. He just wanted to show Yuhi Kurenai his amazing recovery ability last night, but he didn't expect to fall asleep without realizing it. Ding-ling-ling, ding-ling-ling, the alarm clock rang, and Uchiha Yuki and Kurenai Yuhi opened their eyes at the same time. They looked at each other, and Kurenai Yuhi rubbed her head against Uchiha Yuki's chest. Yuki Yuichi hugged Yuhi Kurenai. "Hong, why are you in my bed? Didn't Yuchi ask me to come here?" Yuhi Kurenai pouted. "It was you who asked me to look for you last night, but you were already asleep when I came over, and you even pulled me to sleep with you." Although Yuhi Kurenai looked a little angry, her tone was full of happiness. "It's so nice to be with Yuchi." Hearing what Yuhi Kurenai said, Uchiha Yuki recalled his vague memories of the night. It seemed that I had actually grabbed someone and was sleeping with him in my arms. Thinking of this, Uchiha Yuki couldn't help but smile awkwardly. "I originally wanted to show you my recovery ability," Yuki Yuichi said. Taking off his pajamas and pointing to his intact chest, the bruises disappeared shortly after they returned home yesterday. If it were a normal person, it would take at least 4 or 5 days for the condition to disappear. It can only be said that the vortex physique is so terrifying. Yuhi Kurenai looked at the abdominal muscles that Yuki Yuichi had developed from years of running around and fighting, and she held back her saliva and reached out to touch them. It was only after she finished touching him that Yuhi Kurenai reacted. Her little face instantly turned red and white smoke came out of her head. The whole thing is a steamy girl. Yuki Yuichi was also stunned for a moment, then changed his clothes without a care in the world. Yuhi Kurenai ran away while he was changing his clothes. Thinking of the soft touch of Yuhi Kurenai, Yuchi Yuichi couldn't help but sigh. I really want to grow up quickly. After Yuhi Kurenai changed her clothes, the two of them walked towards the school together. The two of them tacitly did not mention what happened in the morning. By the time we got to the classroom, most people had already arrived. Seeing Yuki Yuichi and Yuhi Kurenai coming in hand, Hokage Kakashi just looked up, and when the two walked in front of him, he said, "Let's go." Asuma Sarutobi was looking over here, and it seemed that as long as the three of them moved, he would follow them instantly. Hearing what Hokage Kakashi said, Yuki Yuichi scratched his head. "Isn't this a bit too hasty? Hong and I just got here, and the teacher asked us to come to school once a day. Aren't we already here?" Hokage Kakashi looked at him in surprise. "Yuki Yuichi, you said you came to school without even looking at the teacher? If the teacher comes, it will be difficult for us to leave, right?" Seeing his confused look, Hokage Kakashi explained, "The teacher can't let us skip class in front of him, right?" Upon hearing this, Yuki Yuichi nodded. "I have to say, what Kakashi Hokage said makes a lot of sense. Then let's go." Yuki Yuichi pointed out the window. "Go." Hokage Kakashi jumped out first. Kurenai, Yuhi and Yuki looked at each other, then followed him out. Asuma Sarutobi followed closely behind them like a gust of wind. Just when Yuki Yuichi was about to jump out, Might Guy stopped him and said seriously, "Yuichi, skipping class is not a good idea. The teacher will be angry." Might Guy spoke very seriously. Seeing his expression, Yuki Yuichi put his arm around his shoulders and whispered, "The teacher told us to leave. Do you want to come along?" Might Guy was stunned when he heard this. The teacher asked us to skip class? He could understand everything Yuki said, but not when they were put together. However, even though he didn't understand, Might Guy looked at Yuki Yuichi and it didn't seem like he was joking. He hesitated for a moment, then nodded. He believed that Yuki would not lie to him. Seeing him nod, Yuki Yuichi smiled. "Then let's go together." Having said that, Yuki jumped out directly. Seeing this, Might Guy felt the gazes of the people around him, gritted his teeth, and rushed out as well. Even though Might Guy has been a Jonin for thousands of years, there is no ambiguity about what he should be enlightened about, so Might Guy is also one of those who doesn't need to attend classes. They rushed out, and Uchiha Obito was running towards the school. PS, I have recommended it. Please read it in the next 2 days. Kidian's recommendation mechanism is based on the amount of paid follow-up reading. The more you read, the better your grades are, and the more free chapters you will get. The 4+1 recommendation mechanism lasts for 5 weeks, so I'm begging for your support every Monday and Tuesday. Chapter 44 Bird Rationalization. Outside the school, Asuma Sarutobi and others saw Might Guy rushing out with Yuki. They were a little curious, but didn't say much. For those who train and practice together, it doesn't really matter if there is one more or one less person. Only Hokage Kakashi looked at Might Guy and thought of what his father had said before. "This guy in green tights is my lifelong rival." Looking at Might Guy, Kakashi Hokage found it hard to associate him with his opponent in his heart. His only opponent is Yuki. A guy like Might Guy who looks unreliable can't possibly be his opponent. Hokage Kakashi thought silently in his heart, and then smiled. However, the smile was hidden by the mask and could not be seen. Might Guy, can't possibly be a match for me, Hokage Kakashi. Just then, the school bell rang. "Let's go." Hearing the bell, Sarutobi Asuma urged, "Although the teacher will turn a blind eye, if you stay at the school gate, you might be mistaken for a truant student." Asuma Sarutobi's words made Kakashi Hokage and Yuki look at him strangely. Zedong hesitated to speak, but finally said, "Aren't we students skipping classes now?" Asuma Sarutobi, I was presumptuous as they talked. They ran towards the training ground. Coincidentally, he ran into Uchiha Obito, who was running wildly. "Obito, are you late?" Asuma Sarutobi asked uncertainly. "It's been 4 days since school started." Uchiha Obito did not arrive at school on time for 3 days. Even if Asuma Sarutobi was slow-witted, he noticed that something was wrong. Hearing what Sarutobi Asuma said, Uchiha Obito panted and said word by word, "I'm not late, I'm just waiting for you here." Not to mention Yuki and the others, even Asuma Sarutobi, who had known Uchiha Obito for only 1 day and had a good relationship with him, thought what he said was nonsense. But just as he was about to speak, a green figure rushed out. Asuma Sarutobi held back his words. "Obito, you actually waited for us here on purpose." This is the passionate and energetic youth, Might Guy hugged Uchiha Obito and couldn't help but shed tears. Uchiha Obito was startled by his action and was hugged before he could react. Might Guy was very strong. Uchiha Obito was already short of breath from the intense running, and he was a little breathless when he was hugged by Might Guy's chest, so he slapped his back frantically. Woo woo woo. Obito, have you also felt the passionate youth, so excited? Might Guy let go of Uchiha Obito, but then grabbed his shoulders again and shook him vigorously. I'm so touched, is he really okay? Seeing this, Asuma Sarutobi took a few steps back, approached Yuchi and Kakashi Hatake, and asked in a low voice, I always feel that Obito is going to die. Don't worry, although Kai is sometimes unreliable, he is still very careful. He will be sent to Konoha Hospital before Obito dies. Yuchi smiled, but the words he said were full of threatening words. What does it mean to be sent to Konoha Hospital before death? Doesn't this mean that it will make people half dead? Kakashi Hatake was full of complaints, and looked at Yuki with a pair of dead fish eyes. Let's go quickly. At this moment, in Kakashi Hatake's mind, Yuki, like Obito, Uchiha and Might Guy, was classified as unreliable. Don't be so serious, it's 50-50, Yuki Yuichi said with a grin. You're destined to be alone this way. I don't want you to say that. Hatake Kakashi heard what Yuki Yuichi said, and said angrily, those girls better stop bothering me. Hearing what Hatake Kakashi said, Yuki Yuichi shook his head and hoped that after Jiraiya wrote The Intimate Paradise, your fifth girl would not be too busy. Speaking of which, Yuki is quite curious about Intimate Paradise. He is very curious about what the erotic novel that has swept the ninja world is like. Speaking of erotic novels, he had read quite a few in his previous life, such as the ending of a certain The Emperor of Love. He even read erotic novels on erotic websites, about his neighbor, the landlady, and his female boss. Well, I'll go see it if I get a chance, Yuki Yuichi murmured in a low voice. Yuhi Kurenai noticed it and turned her head to look at him curiously. What do you want to see? Yuhi Kurenai's words brought Yuki back to his senses. Before he could speak, Yuhi Kurenai continued, whatever it is, I can go with Yuichi to see it. As she spoke, she smiled sweetly, her eyes curved into crescents. Yuki Yuichi stared at her for a long time, then said, Hong, you are so nice. Hong raised her little head, as if to say that I have always been so good. Kakashi Hatake and Asuma Sarutobi looked at each other, then walked forward in silence, separated Uchiha Obito and Might Guy, and each dragged one towards the training ground. Asuma Sarutobi swore, I will find a girlfriend who is more gentle than Kurenai. Hatake Kakashi glanced at his monkey-like appearance and shook his head. He said nothing, but he said everything. Asuma Sarutobi was furious. Asshole Kakashi. What do you mean by that? Nothing else. Hatake Kakashi kept walking and continued, don't get stressed. At this moment, Asuma Sarutobi seemed to have his tail stepped on, and he jumped up and down. What stress? What stress? I'm not stressed. If you defame someone's innocence out of thin air, you will go to jail. Yes, you are not stressed. Hatake Kakashi sighed, the corners of his mouth hidden under the mask slightly raised, but his eyes were still dead fish eyes. This feeling is quite good. Yuki Yuichi and Yuhi Kurenai follow the four of them hand in hand. He doesn't plan to slack off in today's training. He needs to practice and master the changes in chakras, form and properties. He did not forget the Chidori, one of the three skills that Uchiha Sasuke, Sharingan, gave him. A huge fireball, a Sharingan, and a Chidori. Uchiha Sasuke's template is much stronger than the template of the Waste-8 Sakura 1 bloodline limit in 2 ninjutsu. It can be said that each one is useful to him. Yuki wants to legalize Chidori. After all, it took Kakashi Hatake, the creator of Chidori, another 6 years to create this ninjutsu, but I can't wait that long. It's a very uncomfortable feeling to have the ability to use ninjutsu, but not be able to do so. Chapter 45, Climbing Trees and Grooves. It would be very exciting to use Chidori to fight Hatake Kakashi, right? Yuki looked at Kakashi Hatake, who was dragging Might Guy in front of him. Kakashi Hatake suddenly felt a chill on his spine. He turned around abruptly to look, but only saw Yuki's puzzled look. Hatake Kakashi observed his surroundings for a while, thinking silently, it must be my illusion. It's impossible that someone wants to harm me, right? He doesn't have any enemies in Konoha. Hatake Kakashi felt relieved and continued walking forward. They soon arrived at the training ground. When Might Guy saw the well-equipped training ground, his eyes lit up. Death is the same as death? You actually built this place like this? Hearing what Might Guy said, Uchiha Obito stood up with his hands on his hips, took off the goggles he was wearing, and said with his hands on his hips, keep calm and get used to it. Look at me, Uchiha Obito said, patting his chest. Become a man like me, Kai? Yeah, Might Guy nodded vigorously. Sure enough, this is the place where youth is carried. Oh. Do 200 push-ups first, punch 500 more times, finally, do 50 sets of frog jumps, Might Guy yelled, and just lay down and started doing push-ups upon hearing his training goal. Uchiha Obito and Sarutobi Asuma gasped. Has this guy always been this crazy? Yes, Yuki nodded. Guy's ninjutsu talent is not good, so he puts all his efforts on physical skills. He has known Might Guy the longest and is also the person who knows Might Guy best. Even Might Guy himself doesn't understand himself as well as Yuki. Really hard working. Sarutobi Asuma sighed, then cheered up, since Kai has already started training. I can't fall behind. Asuma Sarutobi said this and ran directly to the place where he practiced ninjutsu yesterday to practice fire escape. Kakashi Hatake's gaze became somewhat serious as he looked at Might Guy. This amount of training should far exceed your own. It seems I can't be lazy anymore. Uchiha Obito and Hatake Kakashi also started to practice. Seeing this, Kurenai Yuhi was also ready to continue practicing the dragon fire technique, but was stopped by Yuki Yuichi. Huh? Zairihong looked at him puzzledly, not understanding why he was holding her back. Yuki Yuichi smiled at her and pointed to the big tree next to them. Let's go practice chakra control. Upon hearing this, Kurenai was stunned again. Now, yes, Yuki nodded, we can cover our feet with chakra, and then step vertically on the tree trunk to exercise our chakra control, Yuki Yuichi said as he walked towards the tree. Climbing trees and stepping on water are the most basic uses of chakra, and they have to learn them. Yuki took a deep breath, stepped out with one foot, and stepped on the tree trunk. The chakra firmly attached him to it. Feeling this, Yuki was instantly delighted, and his other foot left the ground and stepped on the tree trunk. However, as he began to control the chakra of his 2 feet, he fell down instantly, hitting the ground with a dull thud. Yuki got up from the ground and brushed off the dust on his body. He didn't notice that he stepped a little too high. Although he was not injured, he still felt pain. Fortunately, when I felt that my chakra was out of control, I used the ninjutsu, defense. Although it only lasted for a short second, the pain was reduced a lot. Yuchi, are you okay? Kurenai walked over and looked at Yuki worriedly. I'm fine. I guess I need to find something to cushion my load, Yuki said as he walked down the mountain. At the same time, he said to Hong, you can train here. I'm going to buy something and then start the tree climbing training. Hearing Yuki's words, Kurenai nodded. Yeah, the training ground is behind the Hokage rock, and there are some shops below the Hokage rock. Yuki randomly found a shop selling ninja tools and walked in. Little boy, what do you want to buy? The person who spoke was a very kind-looking uncle, who did not look down on Yuki because of his age. The uncle looks very kind, but Yuki will not think that he is a good person just because of this. Ninja tools are like arms in the ninja world. This kind-looking uncle is actually selling arms. And how could someone who could sell arms look so kind? There are many ninjas in the ninja world, but not everyone can open a ninja tool shop. Looking at the boss with a kind smile, Yuki scratched his head and said, Boss, do you have any mats here, the kind you use for climbing trees? Yuki didn't know what the ninja tool shop sold, but tree climbing and water treading were very popular in the ninja world, so he thought they had them for sale. Sure enough, after hearing his words, the owner of the ninja tool shop smiled and said, yes, there are 3,000 taels, 5,000 taels, 7,000 taels, and 10,000 taels. I wonder which one the little guest would like. Yuki heard this, thought for a moment, and asked, is there any difference between these? The higher the price, the better the cushioning. The boss's words made Yuki touch his chin and think. Uncle Shinhong left behind 14,000 taels of money. The price of a Chiriko ramen is 60 taels a bowl. For 3 meals a day, 2 people would have 360 taels. Leave 4,000 taels for food, and then you can buy 2 cushions worth 5,000 taels. Yuki thought that maybe he could make some money with the 2 cushions. Neither Kakashi Hatake nor Asuma Sarutobi are short of money. Uchiha Obito was a little worse off, but with the relief money from the Uchiha family, which has been a famous family for thousands of years, he was not short of money after all. The Uchiha clan was in charge of the ninja tool business, and with so many years of accumulation, they had a lot of relief money. Thinking about it, Yuki said, I want 2 5,000 ryo cushions. As he spoke, he took out a 10,000 tael bill from his pocket. The boss took the money, walked to the shelf, and took out 2 cushions that had been packed in plastic bags and the air had been sucked out of them. Here, little guest, The boss handed the mat to Yuki Yuichi and said, "When you want to use it, tear open the bag and the mat will return to its original shape." After coming out of the ninja tool shop, Yuki Yuichi walked on the road with a mat in his hand, glancing at the thing in his hand from time to time. For a moment he didn't know how to look at the world. Everyone knows how to use vacuum cleaners, but in the ninja world, people still use hose to farm even though we all have computers. The transmission of information still relies on manpower or spiritual animals. The complaints about the ninja world made him feel mixed emotions. There are obviously many things that can change the world, but in the end they are not reflected at all. Chapter 46 Suffering is Suffering. When they saw him, Hokage Kakashi stopped swinging his sword. Sarutobi Asuma and Uchiha Obito also stopped their work and came over. Yuki took a look and saw that only Might Guy was still concentrating on his frog jumps, with no attention paid to the outside world. "Yuichi, what are you holding?" Uchiha Obito looked at the two flat, rolled-up bags in his hands and asked curiously, "Is it something delicious? This is obviously not something to eat, right?" Sarutobi Asuma patted his shoulder and said speechlessly, "It looks like something to be used for training." Asuma Sarutobi looked at Yuki Yuichi uncertainly. "This is a cushion." Yuki didn't say anything, and Kakashi Hokage explained it to them. "Hey, 50-50. You actually knew that?" Yuki Yuichi looked at Hokage Kakashi in surprise. He thought that they shouldn't know since they hadn't started practicing climbing trees and walking on water yet. After all, it was vacuumed, so it should not be very similar to the real thing. "I didn't expect that." Hokage Kakashi actually knew that. Hearing what Yuki said, Kakashi Hokage glanced at him. "He had this at home, and he and his father bought it together. Of course you know what this thing is, so why did you buy this?" "Of course it is used to train chakra control," Yuki said without any hesitation. It was not a secret, so he just said it. Climbing trees and treading water can effectively train chakra control, and these two techniques can be applied in many places. For example, when standing on the water or on a wall, you can ignore obstacles and walk vertically on the wall or tree, or run on the water, etc. This is the information I got from other ninjas, and once your chakra control improves, it will be easier to learn ninjutsu, and you can control the chakra in your body more accurately. It can be said that it accomplishes multiple things with one stone. Sigai. Uchiha Obito's eyes lit up when he heard this. And the same was true for Sarutobi Asuma next to him. Although one of them is an Uchiha and the other is the Hokage's child, no one told them this. Hearing this now, I am naturally very excited seeing their expressions. Yuki Yuichi gave a mysterious smile and said, "I bought two." As he spoke, he shook the cushion in his hand. "We can buy them together and use them together. How is it?" Yuki Yuichi said, looking at Uchiha Obito. Might Guy also came over at this time. After hearing what he said, he scratched his head and raised his hand. "Well, I want to join, too." "No problem." Asuma Sarutobi looked at the two cushions in his hands and nodded as well. He didn't have much pocket money, and he was having a quarrel with his old father, so his pocket money, which was already limited, became even less. Now is the perfect time for everyone to contribute money and use this together for cultivation. Hokage Kakashi glanced at the others and shook his head. "I won't participate. I have some at home." "Okay then." Yuki nodded, not too surprised. He just wanted to pull one of Kakashi Hokage and Asuma Sarutobi into his grasp. "So now we have 5 people. These 2 buffers cost 5,000 taels each, so each person is 2,000 taels. Is that okay?" "No problem," Uchiha Obito said carelessly, without even looking at the cushion in his hand. "I'll bring the money to you tomorrow." Asuma Sarutobi and Might Guy said, Me too." After discussing with everyone, Yuki placed a cushion under the tree and tore open the plastic bag on it. The originally shriveled cushion seemed to be absorbing air, slowly growing larger and softer. "Death is enough," Uchiha Obito and Might Guy exclaimed when they saw this. They had never seen anything that was vacuumed. "It seems I have to work harder. Even the cushion is so tenacious. My youth cannot fade." Might Guy shouted and ran off to exercise again. Looking at his back, Yuki Yuichi was silent. "So, how did you connect cushions to youth?" "I'm going to train too." Asuma Sarutobi glanced at the mat on the ground and said, "Let's practice separately. After you and General Hong have finished climbing the tree, we will practice again." Uchiha Obito agreed with Sarutobi Asuma's words. "That's right. Although we paid together, you trained first, and if it weren't for you explaining, we wouldn't know that we could practice like this until now. So, you two should practice first." Uchiha Obito looks rash and unreliable, but he is very reliable at critical moments. Asuma Sarutobi patted his shoulder, and before Yuki Yuichi could say anything, he took him and walked away. Let's see who can complete the ninjutsu first. I will definitely not lose to you. Impossible. I must be the winner. Then give it a try. Kurenai walked over to Yuki Yuichi and looked at Sarutobi Asuma and Uchiha Obito, and smiled. The two of them have a very good relationship. Yuki Yuichi was stunned, thought of Nahara Rin, and looked at Hatake Kakashi, who is practicing swinging a sword at present. Nahara Rin has not yet shown any affection for Hatake Kakashi, although Uchiha Obito didn't get along well with him. It was still within the normal range, but there may be chaos in the future. Yuki Yuichi stroked his chin and thought to himself, could it be that Nahara Rin saw what Wu Wei looked like under his mask? Thinking of this, Yuki shook his head and stopped thinking about it. Let's start training. As he spoke, he looked at the two cushions placed under the big tree. He vaguely remembered that in the original book, someone injured himself all over in order to practice tree climbing. Don't they know how to put a cushion? Even if this condition is not met, it is okay to put something soft underneath. Do you want to temper yourself through suffering and pain? Yuki always believed that suffering is suffering and suffering will not bring success. Suffering is not worth pursuing. Tempering one's will is because suffering cannot be avoided. Once you learn to endure hardship and are willing to endure it, you will have to endure it for the rest of your life. Yuki Yuichi thought in his mind, but without stopping at all. He stepped on the tree trunk again. This time he planned to feel the flow of chakra in his feet. Uncle Zhenhong said that chakra has two properties, repulsion and attraction. Although I don't know how chakra generated by the combination of body cell energy and spiritual energy can have repulsion and attraction, but Yuki could only follow this line of thought. Chapter 47 Zhang Family Watergate. Although Yuki fell every time, she could still see that the height changed every time. Every time Yuki falls, he seems to adjust himself, and then he climbs higher the next time. Yuki is so awesome. Kurenai looked at Yuki with little stars in her eyes, then a pair of small hands clenched. I can't slack off either. This kind of training lasted for 4 days, and Kurenai's talent and chakra control was even stronger than Yuichi's. She is the kind of genius. If Yuki's progress can be described as a snail, progressing slowly, then Kurenai is like walking. Although it is not very fast, but in comparison, she is much faster standing vertically on a tree trunk 3 meters above the ground. Yuki fell into silence as he watched Kurenai almost reaching the top. I remember that I seem to have a title that gives me a bonus for cultivation. Ninja student. Wearing this title will increase the effectiveness of ninjutsu by 10% and the effectiveness of training by 20%. Looking at the Azure panel in front of him, Yuki became even more silent. I have a 20% training enhancement effect, and I am like this too. So how bad is my talent? His talent is actually not bad. Whether it is physique or chakra, he is almost far behind his peers, but the control of chakra is indeed not friendly to him. The more chakras you have, the harder it is to control. The less chakra you have, the easier it is to control. Because of his membership in the Uzumaki clan, his chakra is extremely vast, so naturally it is much more difficult to control. In addition, Kurenai is a genius in illusion. After all, she can become a senior ninja by relying on illusion, and illusions rely heavily on the control of chakra. If Kurenai didn't have a good talent for chakra control, how could she have become a jonin of the illusion type? Comparing the two, Yuki seems like a waste. Others reached the summit, but he had only climbed 2.5 meters. Just as he was thinking, Kurenai's voice appeared in his ears. Yes, I did it. Kurenai stood on the top of the tree with a happy look on her face. Yuki exerted force with his feet, then rolled in the air and landed on the ground with a smile on his face. It's just trash. If Hong is happy, then he is happy. If he lost to Red, he could accept it. Kurenai also walked down from the top of the tree along the trunk, stood firmly on the ground, put her hands behind her back, and looked at Yuki with a smile. Hey, I can already climb trees. Kurenai looked like a kitten, waiting for his praise. Yuki smiled and rubbed her little head. As expected, Hong is the best. Hong smiled innocently, and then said, I can explain the key points of tree climbing to Yuchi. Then I must listen carefully. Not only Yuki, but also Asuma, Sarutobi and others came over. Of course they also heard the noise that Zairi Hong made just now. They all came over, greeted Kurenai with a smile, and then started to mock her. Asuma Sarutobi laughed. You lame Yuchi. Uchiha Obito took off his goggles and said, this Yuchi is lame. Looking at the two of them, Yuki chuckled. So, you two are very brave. Seeing that the situation was not good, Asuma Sarutobi protected Uchiha Obito in front of him and stopped talking. Uchiha Obito didn't notice at all and continued speaking. I'm super brave. Okay, then I'll show you something nice. Yuki pulled Uchiha Obito away. Looking at Uchiha Obito being brought to the venue, Sarutobi Asuma shook his head. Fortunately I'm smart, otherwise I would be the same as Obito. Glancing at him, Hatake Kakashi chuckled. So, you think that guy will let you go? After hanging out with Yuchi for a long time, Kakashi Hatake also became a mess. Hearing his words, Sarutobi Asuma's smile froze on his face, and he looked at Hatake Kakashi stiffly. That shouldn't be the case, right? Uchiha Obito's scream came at this time, causing him to shiver. He coughed lightly and said, I suddenly remembered that there are still some things I haven't finished. I'll go back, see you in the afternoon. Having said that, he ran straight down the mountain. The speed is rarely seen in the world. The people here will not stop eating him just because he is the son of the Hokage. He is very clear about this. And this is also the reason why he is friends with him here. He is Asuma Sarutobi, not the son of the Hokage, but at this moment, he really hoped that Yuchi would treat him as the son of the Hokage like everyone else. This way you can avoid a severe beating. After a long time, Yuki Yuichi came back satisfied. Following behind him was Uchiha Obito, who was now covered in dust and dirt. Where's Asuma? Seeing that one person was missing, Yuki Yuichi looked at Yuhi Kurenai curiously. He ran away. Yuhi Kurenai scratched her little head. Huh? Yuki Yuichi was stunned. Why is he running? He's afraid that you're going to come after him. Might Guy spoke while doing push-ups. Am I the kind of person who will take revenge for any slight in your eyes? Yuki Yuichi looked at them in disbelief, his face full of sadness and despair. Is there still a little love in this world? Yuki Yuichi's expression was very sad, but both Hatake Kakashi and Uchiha Obito looked at him expressionlessly. It seems to be saying, this is who you are. You guys disappoint me so much. Yuki Yuichi sighed. I'm just trying to loosen up your joints. Yuki Yuichi's words made Yuhi Kurenai unable to bear it any longer. Few people have the ability to tell lies with open eyes. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. I'm going to continue climbing the tree, then I'll go practice treading water. Zihong raised her hand. It's not that they did nothing but training. At least they explored the area around the training ground. Not far away there is a small stream with not very deep water. The deepest part only reaches Yuki Yuichi's lower abdomen, perfect for practicing treading water. This may also be the important reason why Minato Namikaze opened a training ground here. If they were left to look for it on their own, they would never find such a good place. It is secluded and not crowded, and you can train various ninjutsu and taijutsu, and there is also a place to practice tree climbing and water treading. While they were training, Minato Namikaze returned to Konoha. Although I can use Flying Thunder God to get home, it's still easier to walk back. Minato Namikaze went home. Chapter 48. There is nothing darker than the Zhang family water gate. The answer is obvious, no. At the entrance of the village, Minato smiled at the two teammates beside him. Then I'll go back first. Please take care of the mission. His teammates were two ordinary Chunins. Minato Namikaze was the captain of the team, but he did not give orders. Instead, he discussed with the two of them. Captain, you can go back. Leave the task to me and Asami. A Chunin with a scar on his face patted his chest. Thank you so much. Minato clasped his hands together in thanks, then disappeared in an instant. The captain is so powerful. The Chunin named Asami couldn't help but sigh. This mission was completed thanks to the captain. Don't you think so, Shino? Yeah, he's so powerful, yet too humble. Zinai also sighed. The two of them walked towards the Hokage building while talking. In the end, the two came to the conclusion that it was their blessing to have Minato Namikaze as their captain. Bang bang bang. Kushina. I'm back. Namikaze. Minato teleported directly to the door and knocked hard. Uzumaki Kushina was cooking. When she heard the sound, she dropped the spatula, rushed out of the kitchen, opened the door, and threw herself directly into Namikaze Minato's arms. Minato. You're finally back. The mission this time was not difficult, so we completed it ahead of schedule. Namikaze Minato's smile was sunny and contagious. I can take a good rest this time. Before Namikaze Minato could finish his words, a burning smell came from the kitchen. Uzumaki Kushina's face changed drastically and she rushed to the kitchen. Oh no! My food. Looking at Uzumaki Kushina's hurried back, Namikaze Minato smiled. Sure enough, this is Kushina. As he spoke, he also walked towards the kitchen, and the two of them worked in the kitchen for a long time before preparing the meal. Sitting at the table, Uzumaki Kushina said while eating, I think nothing will happen to you this time when you come back, right? Although Uzumaki Kushina asked, her tone was affirmative. Namikaze Minato looked at her with a smile. It should be fine. Upon hearing this, Uzumaki Kushina instantly became full of energy and waved her hand. Then we will go talk to the old man Sandame about Xiaoyao's matter later. This is the only child of our Whirlpool clan, you must teach me well." "Yeah," Uzumaki Kushina just said, and Namikaze Minato kept nodding in agreement. Minato Namikaze is the standard template of an ideal boyfriend. He is powerful, gentle, helpful, handsome, and dotes on his wife. The key is to pamper your wife. And on the other side, Yuki had no idea that Uzumaki Kushina was treating him as her only child. This is the only child of the Uzumaki clan. He has a very high political status in Konoha. Although the Vortex clan was wiped out, they left behind many invisible assets. Apart from anything else, the street in Uzumaki Kushina is the asset of the Uzumaki clan. Yuki Yuichi fell from the tree again, and Hatake Kakashi walked over with a wooden sword in both hands. "It's almost time to go eat." Upon hearing this, Yuki looked at the sun and estimated the time in his mind. It was almost 12 o'clock. The ninja school starts at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. They go to have lunch now and then go back to take a shower before class starts. "Then let's go," Yuki Yuichi said. Looking back at the scratches he had carved on the tree trunk, he could now walk to the middle of the tree trunk. The huge amount of chakra was both an advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage is that the mana bar is long, so you don't have to worry about mana consumption. The disadvantage is that it is not easy to control it precisely. Therefore, even with a 20% training bonus of a ninja student, he is only slightly better than an ordinary person in practicing tree climbing. But he had caught something. "I should be able to master tree climbing in the next 2 days." Uchiha Obito was still climbing the tree at this time. Kurenai went to the nearby stream to practice treading water, and it was Uchiha Obito's turn to use the mat. However, because he had just been beaten by Yuki Yuichi, he moved the mat away for a distance so he didn't hear what Kakashi, Hatake and Yuki said, and continued to climb the tree tirelessly. However, he only relied on brute force to roughly cover his feet with chakra, and every step he took made the tree tremble. In contrast, because of this rough method, he could only take 2 steps on the tree trunk. Looking at his appearance, the corners of Kakashi Hatake's mouth twitched. "You know, ordinary people without chakra can't walk more than 2 steps after practicing for a period of time. It's time to go eat." Yuki Yuichi's voice was very loud, and he didn't just notify Uchiha Obito. Might Guy on the other side of the training ground stood up and wiped the sweat from his forehead. "Oh, this is youth." Uchiha Obito also stopped climbing the tree. His rough method consumed a lot of chakra, and he was now panting. Lying on the cushioning mat, he wiped the sweat off his face, so tired. Looking at the hole he had stepped on, Uchiha Obito showed a sense of accomplishment. "What are you looking at?" Yuichi came over and squatted beside him, also looking at the hole, and couldn't help but complain. "You are really working hard." "Yes, I am a hard-working genius," Uchiha Obito spoke without hesitation. "I am a genius, but I am still working so hard. When I open my eyes, I can directly beat Kakashi behind you." He originally wanted to beat up Yuki, but he remembered that this guy also possessed the Sharingan and was physically stronger than him. He felt that he couldn't beat this guy even if he awakened the Sharingan, so he immediately changed his name to Hatake Kakashi. Hearing his words, Hatake Kakashi raised his eyebrows and sneered. "Idiot, damn Kakashi." Uchiha Obito jumped up from the cushion immediately after hearing this. "Just wait, I'm going to pin you to the ground and hammer you soon." Hatake Kakashi only chuckled twice in mockery, without even looking at Uchiha Obito with his dead fish eyes. Just as the two were bickering, Kurenai came out. All wet, she left water stains on the ground with every step she took. Seeing this, Yuki walked over, but he forgot that a beginner would fall into the water if he treaded on water. But it wasn't a big problem, and he wasn't too worried. Hong is not a greenhouse flower. She will become a ninja in the future. However, there is still some concern seeing Yuki Yuichi walking towards her. Kurenai smiled. "Yuichi, this treading water is so difficult, but I feel like I can learn it quickly." Kurenai smiled again. She had thought that treading water would be difficult, but she didn't expect that it would still require tree climbing skills. It just needs to be more refined, but it was still easy for her. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49, I have never been inferior to others in my life. Yuki Yuichi and Kurenai did not go to lunch with them because Kurenai was wet all over, so they went home to take a shower and change clothes. "Hong, your clothes are so ugly." Looking at Kurenai changing into new clothes, Yuki touched his chin and complained. Hearing his words, Hong walked to the mirror and turned around. "My dad bought it, so it shouldn't be ugly, right? Yuhi Kurenai didn't think there was anything wrong with it, but in Yuuki Yuichi's opinion, the clothes were really ugly. Uncle Zhenhong has really bad taste, huh? Zhenhong looked at him puzzledly. Yuuki Yuichi ignored her doubts and took her hand and walked outside, saying, "Let's go shopping for clothes this afternoon. I thought it was okay before, but now looking at Zhenhong's clothes, they are really ugly, the kind that is extremely ugly." For a moment, Yuuki Yuichi was a little confused. How could a girl like Yuhi Kurenai, who was cute when she was young and became a mature lady when she grew up, be given such a vision? Now that I have some money, there is no pressure to buy Zhenhong 2 sets of clothes anyway. It was given by Yuhi Shinku. It's reasonable to use his money to support his daughter. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the bell of the ninja school rang on time. Yuuki Yuichi and Yuhi Kurenai were sitting in their seats chatting idly. The class bell rang for a while, but Ikoku Umino was not on the classroom. Uchiha Madara was late, and Umino Ikoku was criticizing him outside occasionally. There were sounds coming in. Uchiha Madara was with Hatake Kakashi and Might Guy, so the three of them were late together. "Yuichi, why is Obito always late?" Kurenai poked Yuuki carefully with her hand and asked curiously. "Obito seems to be late every day." Yuuki Yuichi didn't know how to answer Yuhi Kurenai's question, so he said uncertainly, "It should be the guidance of fate. To be honest, I don't know why he is always late." Yuuki told the truth in his memory. Uchiha Obito was late because he was helping others, but it's like this every day. He can only say it's the guidance of fate. Umino Ikoku's scolding didn't last long, and he let the three of them into the classroom around 1:30. Hatake Kakashi had a dead look in his eyes and sat down in his seat with a look of despair. Yuuki Yuichi poked his spine and asked curiously, "Did you meet an old lady who needed help?" "No." Hatake Kakashi turned around, looked at him with despair, and said word by word, "We are blocked by a black cat and we can't escape." Yuuki Yuichi, Zhenhong, seeing that Kakashi Hatake didn't seem to be lying, Yuuki could only sigh that the world was becoming more and more crazy. Just as the three were speechless, Umino Ikoku coughed lightly on the podium and said, "The class will start now. Everyone, turn to page 10 of the Will of Fire. Today we will learn from the strongest Hokage, the Seventh Hokage-sama. In the early days of Konoha, he was known as the three strongest Hokage." Ikoku Umino was giving a lecture at the podium, while Yuuki Yuichi was in a daze, pretending to be serious. However, even though he was in a daze, Yuuki Yuichi still nodded from time to time to show his approval. "Just take a look at the things on the Will of Fire. Don't trust them." In Yuuki's eyes, what Ikoku Umino was talking about on the podium was not the Will of Fire, but a fucking pyramid scheme, brainwashing with stories and empty slogans. Although Yuuki was an ordinary person in his previous life, he had seen all kinds of things on the internet. This level of brainwashing was child's play in his eyes. He just needs to be careful not to let Yuhi Kurenai get brainwashed. "However, I believe that with me around and Yuhi Shinku, their father who only teaches them survival skills, Yuhi Shinku will not be brainwashed." As Yuuki Yuichi thought about this, his thoughts gradually became distracted. He practiced tree climbing in the morning, and in the process he discovered that he could simply control the gravity and repulsion of the chakra according to his thoughts. Although it is not very strong, it should be usable for climbing trees and treading water. Yuuki even suspected that the ninjas used this technique to climb trees and tread water. However, Yuhi Shinku was not there, so he couldn't find anyone to ask. "We can only wait for Yuhi Shinku to come back after completing the mission and then ask her." However, this idea was implanted in his mind, and a wisp of light red chakra emerged from his fingertips and turned into a thin rope flowing on the table. Yuuki has the dual attributes of lightning and fire, which are inherent in his chakra. Before he practices other chakra attributes, he can only use lightning and fire. However, this is the innate attribute of his chakra, so his chakra naturally carries the properties of lightning and fire. When he released chakra from his body, Kurenai watched curiously and also tried to release chakra from her fingertips. It is also light red chakra, but the color is darker than Yuuki Yuichi's. "Try to take back the nature of fire in your heart." Yuuki Yuichi's voice sounded in her ears. Yuhi Kurenai did as she was told, and then her chakra, which was originally darker red than Yuuki Yuichi's, became a little lighter, and then as she controlled it, the red color of the chakra became less and less. Finally it turned into colorless chakra thread. It has no color, it has no attributes. Rasengan is an attributeless ninjutsu. The Rasengan had no attributes at the beginning, and it became the wind-style Rasengan as it was gradually developed. And there are wind-style, Rasenshuriken, Big Ball Rasengan and so on. It can be said that this is a panacea ninjutsu. Adding any attribute to a Rasengan without attributes will turn it into a Rasengan of the corresponding attribute. This allows for the development of different series of spiral ninjutsu. Yuuki is interested in the Rasengan, but not particularly interested. The Rasengan is not suitable for him. Even though he uses physical skills in fighting and suppresses Kakashi Hatake and others with his strong physique, he positions himself as a ninjutsu-type ninja. I have a strong physique and good recovery ability, but that does not prevent me from being a ninjutsu-type ninja. Thinking about the Rasengan, Yuki wondered in his heart that if he learned the form changes and property changes of fire release, he could use the characteristics of fire release to develop a flying ninjutsu. He really wanted to improve, and he doesn't think he can only rely on the achievement system. He is Yuki Yuichi, and he has never been inferior to anyone in his life. Minato Namikaze was able to develop the first Rasengan in the Rasen series, and he, Yuki, developed a series of ninjutsu for himself. Is there a problem with that? No problem at all. Yuki Yuichi was so absorbed in thought that he unconsciously retracted the chakra line in his hand. His head still nodded from time to time, following Umino Ikuku's rhythm. At this time in the Hokage's office, Uzumaki Kushina kicked open the office door. He walked in with Minato Namikaze. Character design of the protagonist. Today's early update. Chapter 50. This is the foresight of Lord Hokage. There was still some embarrassment on Minato Namikaze's face. He didn't know how to start talking. Seeing Uzumaki Kushina like this is too disrespectful to the Sandaime Namikaze. Minato was a little embarrassed, but Sarutobi Hiruzen put down the documents in his hand and smiled at Uzumaki Kushina. Kushina, why are you two here? His smile was warm, but Uzumaki Kushina didn't care. She walked forward and supported herself on the desk with her hands. However, she did not say anything. Instead, she stared straight at Sarutobi Hiruzen, making his scalp tingle. At this time, Namikaze Minato coughed lightly, pulled Uzumaki Kushina to sit opposite him, and said, "We want to trouble the Hokage this time." When Sarutobi Hiruzen heard this, his eyes lit up. Namikaze Minato's words made him instantly realize that this time it was Uzumaki Kushina who wanted to ask him for a favor. Uzumaki Kushina's affairs were his affairs, and as long as they were not too excessive, he would be satisfied. Looking at his appearance, Namikaze Minato was certain in his heart and at the same time relaxed a little. Seeing the look of Hokage, it should be easy to say it. Do you still remember Yuki Yuichi? Minato asked tentatively. Sarutobi Hiruzen frowned when he heard this, and thought for a while before pretending not to understand and asking, "Are you talking about the boy I met at the ramen shop before?" "Yes." Minato Namikaze nodded. "What does this have to do with Yuki Yuichi?" Sarutobi Hiruzen said, glancing at Uzumaki Kushina out of the corner of his eye. He was well aware of Yuki Yuichi's existence, and the last encounter at Ichiriko Ramen was also deliberately created by him. He has always kept this child who has the blood of both the Uzumaki and Uchiha clans in his heart. After learning that Yuki had awakened the Sharingan, he knew that a genius who combined the Uzumaki and Uchiha bloodlines was born. Since he was a child, Yuki Yuichi has shown the physique and recovery ability of the Uzumaki clan. This time, the awakening of the Sharingan was even more of a surprise to him. Even when he knew that Yuki used eye drops to awaken the Sharingan, he was still wondering if the blood of the Uzumaki clan could promote the development of the Sharingan. He had never heard of Yuki opening his eyes in such a way. Seeing the two of them dithering, Uzumaki Kushina immediately stood up impatiently. The reason why she asked Minato Namikaze to be with her was just to save face. If she hadn't been worried that the old man Sandai would reject her, she would have brought this up a long time ago. Zio Yaoi is from the same clan as me, and he is also the last remaining member of the Uzumaki clan. I want to teach him the art of sealing. Seeing Uzumaki Kushina's appearance, Sarutobi Hiruzen felt a little too. Thank you, are the only one teaching others the sealing technique? It'll make people laugh to death if you tell them about it. As if seeing his distrust, Minato Namikaze gave a bright smile. Kushina taught me how to seal. I trust her. Upon hearing this, Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at Uzumaki Kushina, then at Namikaze Minato, and tapped his fingers on the table. No rush, let's take a look at him first, Sarutobi Hiruzen said, taking out his favorite crystal ball from the drawer, and quickly formed seals with his hands, and the face of Yuki Yuichi appeared on it. The telescope technique cannot penetrate the floor, so the perspective is from outside the classroom window. Seeing this, Uzumaki Kushina and Namikaze Minato also came over, and the three of them looked at Yuki and the crystal ball. Uzumaki Kushina nodded with satisfaction. Sure enough, this is the genius of our Uzumaki clan, as studious as I was when I was a kid. Looking at Uzumaki Kushina, Namikaze Minato seemed to want to say something but stopped himself. Sarutobi Hiruzen also coughed lightly, signaling the two to continue watching. Others may not know what Uzumaki Kushina was like when she was a child, but how could he not know? He is a school bully who advocates the use of force. Yuki was still lost in thought at this moment. and he had no idea that 3 people were observing him. He still nodded from time to time, looking at Umino Ikoku with empty eyes. Umino Ikoku had noticed his expression a long time ago and knew that he was not paying attention to the lecture, but he didn't say much. Geniuses have their own methods. Moreover, he just wanted to finish the literacy and chakra refining courses as soon as possible. By then, Yuki Yuichi and the other brats won't skip classes anymore. Umino Ikoku was thinking in his mind, still telling the story of the hero of Konoha who sacrificed himself for the will of fire. The years were peaceful, and Yuki Yuichi still nodded from time to time. Kurenai Yuhi was beside him, with a chakra thread extending from the tip of her right index finger. She controlled the silk threads to continuously pull various objects and had a lot of fun in the Hokage's office. Sarutobi Hiruzen and the other 2 looked at Yuki Yuichi and all showed a satisfied expression. The perspective in the crystal ball was looking out the window into the classroom. They did not see Yuichi's empty eyes, but they could see him nodding from time to time. Everyone thought he was listening very carefully. Sarutobi Hiruzen closed the crystal ball and put it back into the drawer. This was his precious treasure, and he had to keep it well and not let that bastard Jiraiya steal it. Seeing that Sarutobi Hiruzen put away the crystal ball and didn't say anything, Uzumaki Kushina clenched her fist, punched a fist mark on the desk, and said viciously, "Old dong, you are not going to refuse." Sarutobi Hiruzen chuckled and motioned for her to sit down. Namikaze Minato pulled her clothes and said, "Kushina, please sit down first, I promise you." Before Uzumaki Kushina sat down, Sarutobi Hiruzen suddenly spoke before she could be happy. Sarutobi Hiruzen continued, "But not now, are you kidding me?" Uzumaki Kushina was furious. "Do you believe I can make you redecorate this office?" Upon hearing this, Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at Namikaze Minato helplessly. Namikaze Minato naturally understood what he meant, and immediately pulled Uzumaki Kushina. "Let's listen to what the Hokage says first." Uzumaki Kushina gave all her tenderness to Namikaze Minato. Hearing this, he snorted coldly and sat down. Sarutobi Hiruzen heaved a sigh of relief when he saw this, and then continued, "I plan to wait until they graduate and let you become Yuki Yuichi's team leader, but you can't interfere with his growth now," Sarutobi Hiruzen said, looking towards Uzumaki Kushina. He just said casually about not interfering with growth. Yuki has both Uzumaki and Uchiha bloodlines, and he plans to gain the boy's favor while he is still in the ninja school. This is the foresight of Lord Hokage. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.